Chapter 54 Loss of Superiority. Second update. Lu Wei looked at An Yang. Surprised. You know English? An Yang replied nonchalantly. One learned a little before. An Yang's company had gone international in her previous life. How could she not know some English? And in her past life, she had graduated from a 211 university. But Lu Wei was shocked, because in his heart, aside from being beautiful, An Yang had nothing else going for her. After all, An Yang was just a simple village girl from the countryside, while he was an intellectual. How could An Yang possibly know English? And she spoke so well. Could it be a fluke? Preserving this line of thought, Lu Wei continued. Then can you come over and see if there's any difference between these two words? An Yang walked over, looked at the words Lu Wei was pointing out, then said, This one is pronounced admiring. One, although it and admirable are both adjectives. The former refers to things or people that inspire admiration, often serving as a predicate or a descriptive word. The latter means worthy of admiration and can be used to describe things or people, primarily as an attribute. Her tone was gentle, pure, and measured, like breezes in April, pleasing to the heart and delightful to the mind. After An Yang explained, Lu Wei was stunned. He couldn't help but ask, An Yang, what's your educational background? I have a junior high school education, An Yang replied calmly. I just passed high school last year, but for some reasons, one didn't go. She learned English in junior high? Lu Wei furrowed his brows. What was happening? Or, did An Yang just happen to know these two English words? And even if An Yang had indeed studied, she was a junior high school student, she couldn't possibly know more than he, a high school student? He was an excellent student and the class monitor. How could he be worse than a junior high school student? Thinking of this, Lu Wei's eyes were filled with complicated emotions. He felt quite uncomfortable. An Yang didn't have time to guess what a teenager in puberty was thinking. She continued, I've put the things away. I'm leaving first. Okay. Lu Wei came back to his senses. Waving at An Yang, Goodbye. Goodbye. Lu Wei watched An Yang's departing figure and quietly clenched his fists. No matter. Even if An Yang's English was really good, she was still just a junior high school graduate. He's going to college in the future and becoming a college student. How could An Yang, a junior high school student, compare to himself, a future college student? And An Yang was still a country bumpkin. Even if he ended up with her in the future, she would be the one reaching up. Today was the day An Hua completed her first month postpartum. So An Yang went to the vegetable market and bought a lot of vegetables, planning to celebrate at home tonight. Additionally, An Yang bought over 100 pounds of pak choi to make sour cabbage. She now used almost 15 pounds of sour cabbage every day, so she needed to stock up more, or else green vegetables would increase in price when winter comes, and the taste of the sour cabbage made in summer is more pure and tangy. On the way back, An Yang ran into many villagers. She clearly felt that the villagers' attitudes towards her were much friendlier than before, and their smiles now seemed more genuine. When An Yang got home, she cleaned and pickled the pak choi, then went to the river to catch fish, picked up some river snails, and then went home to prepare dinner. An Yang bought pork ribs, pig's feet, free-range chicken, tofu, cucumber, lettuce, and many other vegetables today, enough for several days without having to buy more. An Hua chuckled. It's not a big day. There's no need to prepare so much food. An Yang fed the broken lettuce leaves to the little rabbits. You finished your sitting month, and my little sister is 1 month old today. Isn't it a major event? One will prepare a few more dishes tonight to celebrate fully. Over the past month, the little rabbits had grown much fatter. They hopped around each day, adding a lot more vitality to the yard. An Hua continued, Actually, there's no need to waste money. It isn't easy for you to earn money from your business. An Yang grabbed An Hua's hand, looked at her and said, Mom, we have money now. You don't have to be like before. Things will only get better from now on. In fact, An Hua had changed a lot over the past month, not only in terms of personality but also appearance and figure. Her skin had become much fairer, the wrinkles around her eyes had lightened, her chest had become firmer, and the skin on her face had clearly tightened a lot. Compared to a month ago, Enai Tsuehua seemed like a different person. At these words, Enai Tsuehua nodded, a warm light gleaming in her eyes. She knew how much it took for a mother and daughter to get to where they were today, especially Enai Yang, just a 17-year-old girl, shouldering all the burdens alone. From now on, she, as a mother, must become strong and absolutely not hold her daughter back. Enai Yang prepared a lot of sumptuous dishes that evening. There were roasted pig's feet, chicken mushroom stew, sweet and sour pork ribs, pig's feet and kelp braised carp, mapo tofu and stir-fried cucumber with chili. The main course was ear fungus jujube porridge and toasted bread. All these dishes were prepared by Enai Yang based on the Buddhist needs. Not only were they delicious and nutritious, they were also detoxifying and beautifying. Especially the ear fungus jujube porridge, it was beneficial for freckle removal. She didn't have freckles on her face, but this dish was preventive, and it seemed that Enai Tsuehua had a few light freckles on her face. Not only Enai Tsuehua and Enai Chenggue had changed, but Enai Yang had also changed a lot. It's just that her changes were not as noticeable due to her already beautiful appearance. Chapter 55 Refusal, Part 1 Update. Enai Yang gave a slight smile. You can just call me Xiaoni, Mr. Li. Please feel free to speak your mind. 11 Li Gongcheng cleared his throat. The thing is, he relayed the offer that the Mo family had extended to hire Enai Yang. After listening, Enai Yang graciously refused. Thank you for your boss' generous offer, but I prefer RHE way I currently live and do not wish to settle into a regular job at the moment. Hearing this, Li Gongcheng seemed to heave a sigh of relief as he continued. Xiaoni, you shouldn't decline so hastily. Our boss told me that your monthly salary could be 100 yuan, including meals and accommodation. You'd only need to take care of the old lattice meals each day, and the rest of the time you'd have for yourself. If you don't want to live at the MO residence, you can opt for a cash equivalent of the rent. We are also willing to provide a bicycle. A monthly wage of 100 yuan was rather high for that time. It was even more than that of white-collar workers in later years. After all, at that time, the average salary for a worker was around 80 to 90 yuan. Enai Yang was fortunate that her skills had won over the old lady Mo. Otherwise, who would pay a monthly salary of 100 yuan to a cook? However, Enai Yang still shook her head. I'm sorry. Kindly convey to your boss that this is not about the money. Li Gongcheng was taken aback that Enai Yang would still refuse the offer even after hearing the salary. He stood up, incredulously asking, Xiaoni, are you sure about your refusal? Enai Yang gave a small nod. Yes, I'm sure. Li Gongcheng was at a loss for words. He had assumed that Enai Yang would surely accept the offer upon hearing a monthly salary of Lu Yuan. Keep in mind, his own monthly salary amounted to only 30 yuan. Enai Yang's salary was more than triple of his own. When he first heard the offered salary, he was quite astounded. He was even concerned that Enai Yang would look down upon his salary once she started working for the Mo family. But to his surprise, Enai Yang refused without hesitation. This was a salary of 100 yuan. This added up to 1,200 yuan in a year. Would Enai Yang be able to make 1,200 yuan by selling noodles out in the sun and rain all year round? Setting aside the monthly salary, the Mo family itself was highly respected, and many people couldn't even get an opportunity to work there despite their best efforts. But Enai Yang, despite being offered a high salary and the best treatment, she still refused. Xiaoni's refusal left Li Gongcheng puzzled. It appeared that this young teenage girl was far more sophisticated than he had imagined. Her allure was not just her physical appearance. Suppressing his shock, Li Gongcheng stood up and replied, All right, Xiaoni, I'll relay your message to our boss. Sorry for taking your time. No problem. Enai Yang flashed a small smile. After saying goodbye to Enai Yang, Li Gongcheng headed directly to the Song group. In the office, Song Beiqing was reviewing cooperation case. Song Beiqing was a very energetic person, who not only founded the first private enterprise in China, but all his businesses were export-oriented, earning foreign currency. Second young master. Song Beicheng put down the document in his hand and glanced up at Li Gongcheng. Why are you here? You could have taken her directly to the old lady. Li Gongcheng hesitated briefly, then continued. Second young master, the noodle stall owner. She has rejected us. Refused. Song Beicheng one's brows furrowed slightly. Li Gongcheng nodded. Yes. Song Beicheng asked, is she discontented with the salary or the remuneration? Li Gongcheng shook his head and truthfully conveyed An Yang's words. Neither. She said that she really likes her current lifestyle and doesn't want to settle into an organized work environment. Moreover, she said, this is not a question of salary or treatment. Hearing this, Song Beicheng slightly arched his eyebrows. It seemed, based on Li Gongcheng's description, that this noodle stall owner was an interesting character. However, Song Beicheng never believed that there were people in this world who didn't love money. He decided, all right then, you'll take me to her tomorrow morning. Li Gongcheng was slightly surprised. Second young master? Ooh, you will go personally? The second young master always had a multitude of things to deal with every day. How could he go personally to handle such matters? Song Beicheng nodded. Yes, I'll go and meet her myself. Yes. Song Beicheng wanted to personally meet the noodle stall owner. Having contested in the business world for so many years, he had never met someone who didn't care about money. Someone who was even setting up a stall, yet was claiming not to care about money. Wasn't this a joke? Hearing this, Li Gongcheng was stunned for a moment, before replying, all right then, I'll make the arrangements. Okay. Song Beicheng nodded lightly. You may leave now. Li Gongcheng complied and withdrew. Elsewhere, An Yang continued with her routine of raking chairs and tables over to Lu Dongliang, the shop owner's place. Today was Saturday, and Lu Wei sat outside reading English on a small stool. In 1978, the college entrance examination resumed and English was formally included as a subject in 1983. Prior to that, Chinese people didn't stress much on English, so even a top student like Lu Wei found it a bit challenging, especially with inadequate prior foundation. When Lu Wei read a particular word, An Yang looked up slightly. Her lips parted to correct him. That word should be pronounced admirable. Her pronunciation was impeccable American English, even better than the radio broadcasters. Sir, the novel Fire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 56. Visit from Mr. Song Tuai. During dinner, Wang Meifeng and her son Yang Guobao just happened to drop by the NIS residence. Arriving just in the nick of time, An Yang warmly invited them, and the mother and son duo sat down for the meal. It was Wang Meifeng's first time eating the dishes prepared by An Yang. She couldn't praise her enough. Yang, your culinary skills are simply exceptional, even better than a professional chef at a restaurant. An Yang felt rather embarrassed by the glowing compliment. Wang Meifeng's trust in An Yang had grown over time, and she often visited the NI residence. For the past month, Yang Guobao's illness had been acting up less and less. What used to be every 3 days had now become once every week. However, Wang Meifeng was not planning to return home yet. She intended to return after 3 months and then take Yang Guobao to the city hospital for a full-body checkup. Only by returning with a medical report from the hospital would the Yang family believe what she had been through, and her grievances might well be understood. And only then could they, as mother and son, truly be accepted by the Yang family. After they finished the meal, Wang Meifeng offered to do the dishes, but An Yang quickly retorted, absolutely not, Aunt Wang. You're our guest, we can't have you doing the dishes. Wang Meifeng, however, insisted, one need to return the favor. Washing a few dishes is nothing. If you refuse, I may feel uncomfortable visiting your home in the future. After such a scrumptious meal prepared by An Yang, it would be unconscionable if they left a whole table full of dirty dishes for An Yang to clean on her own. Wang Meifeng was not someone who lacked consideration. Seeing how determined Wang Meifeng was, An Yang reluctantly agreed. All right, then let me help by drying the dishes. In the kitchen, Wang Meifeng and Enai Yang washed the dishes. Meanwhile, Enai Chengui was chatting with Enai Tsuehua in the living room. Looking at Enai Yun, she smiled. This child is growing so quickly, Tsuehua. You're fortunate to have such competent and adorable daughters. Unlike me, I only have a disobedient daughter who married and moved far away. Enai Chengui's eyes welled up with tears as she spoke. Eiler life had been tough. She lost her husband before turning 40, and her only daughter married into a family far away. This made it hard for them to even meet. As she got older, she thought she wouldn't be able to count on anyone. Whenever these thoughts struck her, Enai Chengui would feel an overwhelming sadness. Enai Tsuehua sighed, carefully choosing her words to console Chengui. Have you ever thought about finding someone else? You're still young, you cannot possibly spend your life alone. Enai Chengui bitter laughed. My daughter is about to have a child. If one get another man now, won't it be a laughing stock? This era was not as progressive as the modern times. If a woman lost her husband, she'd often stay a widow for life. Upon hearing this, Enai Tsuehua fell into a deep silence, tightly hugging the child in her arms. Words failed to escape her lips. Back in the kitchen, Wang Meifeng finished washing the last dish and looked at Enai Yang. Thanks to the medication you provided last time, Gobeo's condition has improved tremendously. It's been over a week since he last fell ill. By the way, I forgot to ask you last time. Are there any restrictions while consuming the medication? Like what he can or cannot eat? Enai Yang smiled. There isn't any particular dietary restriction. He just should avoid foods that can reduce the potency of the medicine, like bananas and pineapples. Although these fruits should not be eaten with traditional Chinese medicine, they were quite precious and rarely accessible, especially in rural areas. Even catching a glimpse was tough, let alone consuming them. Wang Meifeng nodded in understanding. Okay, I got it, Yang. Thank you. If it hadn't been for Enai Yang Guobao wouldn't be where he is now. Over the past month, not only had Yang Guobao's physical health improved significantly, but his mental state and personality had also undergone a tremendous transformation compared to a month ago. When Yang Guobao was in Beijing, he only had one friend, Mo Fludai. Since Hudi fell ill and was bedridden, no other children were willing to play with Yang Guobao. Here, however, Yang Guobao made a bunch of friends through Enai Yang. Even though Yang Guobao didn't express it, her mother knew very well that her son had been genuinely happy lately. The next day, at the morning market on Yurdist Road, perhaps because of the change in pickled vegetables, the pickled vegetable noodles sold extremely well. It was barely 10 o'clock in the morning, and Enai Yang was already preparing to close her stall. Just then, a black car slowly stopped by the roadside. Li Gongqing emerged from the driver's seat, circled over to the passenger side, and respectfully opened the car door. Second master, we've arrived. The car door opened to reveal a neatly clad leg stepping out. The first thing to catch the eye was a shiny pair of leather shoes. Moving upward, the man was seen wearing a tailored handmade suit, a neat tie, and his fine phoenix eyes were hidden behind gold-rimmed spectacles. He stepped out of the car, and his eyes turned towards the alleyway. Is this the place? He asked, sounding incredulous. He hadn't expected that the noodles, so highly praised by the elderly lady of the Mo family, would be from such a decrepit alleyway. Yes, second master, this is the place, Li Gongcheng replied respectfully. Song Beiqing nodded slightly and said, Lead the way. Right away, second master. Please follow me. Li Gongcheng strode ahead. Shawnee. Li Gongcheng brought Song Beiqing to Enai Yang's stall and called out to her. Mr. Li. Enai Yang looked up in surprise, a faint smile appearing on her face. Enai Yang was facing away from the sun. As she turned her head, it seemed as if her smile was the only thing left in the sunlight, illuminating like a starry river. Everything else became a mere backdrop. Song Beiqing hadn't expected that the noodle maker would be a woman, and such a young one at that. In Song Beiqing's imagination, whoever could make such delicious noodles should at least be an old craftsman with decades of expertise. Just as Song Beiqing was still recovering from his surprise, Li Gongcheng introduced, Shawnee, this is my boss, Second master, this is the noodle master, Xiaoni. The first sentence was addressed to Ni Yang, and the latter was for Song Beicheng. Song Beicheng quickly collected his thoughts and extended his hand toward Ni Yang. Hello, Miss Ni. I'm Song. After reaching out, Song Beicheng regretted it a bit. He was accustomed to shaking hands in business environments, but this time he was dealing with such a young girl. Would she understand that shaking hands was a courtesy? At that time, China had not yet adopted the more open customs of foreign countries, and the practice of shaking hands was not widespread. If this young lady misunderstood and thought he was acting indecently, it would be quite embarrassing. Caught in this predicament, Song Beicheng didn't know whether he should retract his hand or leave it hanging midair. Just as Song Beicheng felt embarrassed, Ni Yang politely smiled and lightly shook his extended fingers. Hello, Boss Song. You can simply call me Xiaoni. Chapter 57 Visit from Mr. Song Tuai. During dinner, Wang Meifeng and her son Yang Guobao just happened to drop by the NIS residence. Arriving just in the nick of time, Ni Yang warmly invited them, and the mother and son duo sat down for the meal. It was Wang Meifeng's first time eating the dishes prepared by Ni Yang. She couldn't praise her enough. Yang, your culinary skills are simply exceptional, even better than a professional chef at a restaurant. Ni Yang felt rather embarrassed by the glowing compliment. Wang Meifeng's trust in Ni Yang had grown over time, and she often visited the Ni residence. For the past month, Yang Guobao's illness had been acting up less and less. What used to be every 3 days had now become once every week. However, Wang Meifeng was not planning to return home yet. She intended to return after 3 months and then take Yang Guobao to the city hospital for a full-body checkup. Only by returning with a medical report from the hospital would the Yang family believe what she had been through, and her grievances might well be understood. And only then could they, as mother and son, truly be accepted by the Yang family. After they finished the meal, Wang Meifeng offered to do the dishes, but Ni Yang quickly retorted, Absolutely not, Aunt Wang. You're our guest, we can't have you doing the dishes. Wang Meifeng, however, insisted, One need to return the favor. Washing a few dishes is nothing. If you refuse, I may feel uncomfortable visiting your home in the future. After such a scrumptious meal prepared by Ni Yang, it would be unconscionable if they left a whole table full of dirty dishes for Ni Yang to clean on her own. Wang Meifeng was not someone who lacked consideration. Seeing how determined Wang Meifeng was, Ni Yang reluctantly agreed. All right, then let me help by drying the dishes. In the kitchen, Wang Meifeng and Ni Yang washed the dishes. Meanwhile, Ni Chengui was chatting with Ni Tsuehua in the living room. Looking at Ni Yun, she smiled. This child is growing so quickly, Tahua. You're fortunate to have such competent and adorable daughters. Unlike me, I only have a disobedient daughter who married and moved far away. Ni Chengui's eyes welled up with tears as she spoke. Eiler life had been tough. She lost her husband before turning 40, and her only daughter married into a family far away. This made it hard for them to even meet. As she got older, she thought she wouldn't be able to count on anyone. Whenever these thoughts struck her, Ni Chengui would feel an overwhelming sadness. Ni Tsuehua sighed, carefully choosing her words to console Chengui. Have you ever thought about finding someone else? You're still young, you cannot possibly spend your life alone. Ni Chengui bitter laughed. My daughter is about to have a child. If one get another man now, won't it be a laughing stock? This era was not as progressive as the modern times. If a woman lost her husband, she'd often stay a widow for life. Upon hearing this, Ni Tsuehua fell into a deep silence, tightly hugging the child in her arms. Words failed to escape her lips. Back in the kitchen, Wang Meifeng finished washing the last dish and looked at Ni Yang. Thanks to the medication you provided last time, Gobeo's condition has improved tremendously. It's been over a week since he last fell ill. By the way, I forgot to ask you last time. Are there any restrictions while consuming the medication? Like what he can or cannot eat? Ni Yang smiled. There isn't any particular dietary restriction. He just should avoid foods that can reduce the potency of the medicine, like bananas and pineapples. Although these fruits should not be eaten with traditional Chinese medicine, they were quite precious and rarely accessible, especially in rural areas. Even catching a glimpse was tough, let alone consuming them. Wang Meifeng nodded in understanding. Okay, I got it, Yang Yang. Thank you. If it hadn't been for Yang, Yang Guobao wouldn't be where he is now. Over the past month, not only had Yang Guobao's physical health improved significantly, but his mental state and personality had also undergone a tremendous transformation compared to a month ago. When Yang Guobao was in Beijing, he only had one friend, Mo Fludai. Since Hudi fell ill and was bedridden, no other children were willing to play with Yang Guobao. Here, however, Yang Guobao made a bunch of friends through Yang. Even though Yang Guobao didn't express it, her mother knew very well that her son had been genuinely happy lately. The next day, at the morning market on Yurdist Road, perhaps because of the change in pickled vegetables, the pickled vegetable noodles sold extremely well. It was barely 10 o'clock in the morning, and Yang was already preparing to close her stall. Just then, a black car slowly stopped by the roadside. Li Gongqing emerged from the driver's seat, circled over to the passenger side, and respectfully opened the car door. Second master, we've arrived. The car door opened to reveal a neatly clad leg stepping out. The first thing to catch the eye was a shiny pair of leather shoes. Moving upward, the man was seen wearing a tailored handmade suit, a neat tie, and his fine phoenix eyes were hidden behind gold-rimmed spectacles. He stepped out of the car, and his eyes turned towards the alleyway. "Is this the place?" he asked, sounding incredulous. He hadn't expected that the noodles, so highly praised by the elderly lady of the Mo family, would be from such a decrepit alleyway. "Yes, second master, this is the place," Li Gongqing replied respectfully. Song Beiqing nodded slightly and said, "Lead the way." "Right away, second master. Please follow me." Li Gongqing strode ahead. "Shawnee." Li Gongqing brought Song Beiqing to an Yang stall and called out to her, "Mr. Li." Yang looked up in surprise, a faint smile appearing on her face. Yang was facing away from the sun. As she turned her head, it seemed as if her smile was the only thing left in the sunlight, illuminating like a starry river. Everything else became a mere backdrop. Song Beiqing hadn't expected that the noodle maker would be a woman, and such a young one at that. In Song Beiqing's imagination, whoever could make such delicious noodles should at least be an old craftsman with decades of expertise. Just as Song Beiqing was still recovering from his surprise, Li Gongqing introduced, "Shawnee, this is my boss. Second master, this is the noodle master, Shawnee." The first sentence was addressed to Yang, and the latter was for Song Beiqing. Song Beiqing quickly collected his thoughts and extended his hand toward Yang. "Hello, Miss I am Song." After reaching out, Song Beiqing regretted it a bit. He was accustomed to shaking hands in business environments, but this time he was dealing with such a young girl. Would she understand that shaking hands was a courtesy? At that time, China had not yet adopted the more open customs of foreign countries, and the practice of shaking hands was not widespread. If this young lady misunderstood and thought he was acting indecently, it would be quite embarrassing. Caught in this predicament, Song Beiqing didn't know whether he should retract his hand or leave it hanging midair. Just as Song Beiqing felt embarrassed, Yang politely smiled and lightly shook his extended fingers. "Hello, Boss Song. You can simply call me Shawnee." Chapter 58 Sky High Invitation. _1 The girl's hand was soft, delicate, and slightly cool to the touch. It left him with a strange sensation, as if it could reach his heart, causing him a hint of lightheadedness. What surprised Song Beiqing more was that this girl knew how to shake hands. Not only that, but she also understood the protocol very well. She barely grasped his hand, quickly let go after a light grip, showing courtesy without feeling awkward, as though she had undergone professional training. If she were some kind of socialite, that would be one thing. But she was just a noodle seller. After letting go, Yang asked, "May first know the reason for Mr. Song's visit?" Song Beiqing slowly began, "Ms. you should be very clear about the purpose of my visit. Compared to the term Miss, comrade was more popular in this era, but since Song Beiqing was a businessman, and with his international outlook, his thinking was far ahead of most people. And Aiyang was smart. She knew what Song Beiqing meant. Her red lips slightly parted, rejecting softly. "Thank you for your kind intentions, Mr. Song. If you are here for that matter, one must apologize. One might disappoint you." Song Beiqing smiled in response. "Is Ms. and I really not considering it anymore?" And Aiyang shook her head slightly. "No need." Half closing his eyes, Song Beiqing softly said, "I've heard that Ms. Nas business is very good. Every morning people line up to buy your noodles. If you sell about 600 bowls of noodles every day, and each bowl is for 3 cents, then, including cost, you earn about 180 yuan per day, which is 5,400 yuan per month. Comparing this amount, it seems the 100 yuan monthly salary one offered was indeed too little." It was only after calculating that he realized how shocking the numbers were. This young girl might be of tender age, but her earning ability was anything but. No wonder she had scoffed at his previous offer of a 100 yuan monthly salary. It seemed that it wasn't about her not loving money, but rather his offer lacking in comparison to her appetite. Song Beiqing looked at Aiyang and continued, "I apologize, Ms. Ni, for the lack of sincerity in my previous offer. Now, 1 a.m. willing to hire you for double your current monthly income. What do you say?" At these words, even Li Gongcheng was astonished. Twice the income? The second master just said that Aiyang earns 5,400 yuan a month. So how much was double? Li Gongcheng quickly calculated in his mind, and once he got the answer, he looked at Aiyang, his eyes full of disbelief. Aiyang earns 5,400 yuan a month selling noodles? And second master, he's really willing to offer over 10,000 yuan to hire a noodle cook? If second master wasn't joking, then he definitely must be crazy. No matter how rich, money couldn't withstand such reckless spending. Aiyang's face was still calm, as if unaffected by Song Beiqing's offer. "Mr. Song, I'm sorry to disappoint you, my answer stands. Not to mention 10,000 yuan, even if it were 100,000 yuan a month, Aiyang wouldn't consider it." Song Beiqing's offer was indeed very tempting, but she had her own dreams and aspirations. Working for someone else for a stable wage didn't suit her. However, it must be said, Song Beiqing was being quite obstinate, willing to spend 10,000 yuan to hire a cook. The disparity between the rich and the poor was indeed seriously imbalanced regardless of the era. While some people still haggled over a cent for a bun, the wealthy were willing to spend tens of thousands to hire a cook to satisfy their palate. She didn't understand the world of the rich. However, no matter how things change, the rules of survival remain the same. Fate would not cheat those who strive and work hard. Time would give you everything you want. Aiyang never believed in fate, nor in anyone else. She trusted only herself. "Refuse." Song Beiqing frowned slightly, a flicker of displeasure in his eyes. He continued, "Ms. and I, this salary isn't low. In all of Beijing, perhaps only 1 a.m. willing to hire you for this sum." She wasn't satisfied with 10,000? This girl looked modest, but apparently her appetite was huge. Aiyang smiled softly. "Mr. Song, you misunderstand. It is not a matter of money." Before Aiyang could finish her sentence, Song Beiqing interrupted. 20,000. There must be no one he couldn't convince with money. Aiyang's expression remained unchanged. "Mr. Song, I've made it very clear that it is not about the money. Even if you increase the offer to 100,000 or 200,000, one will not. 50,000. Song Beiqing interjected again. His tone nonchalant, as if the money was just a mere number in his eyes. Song Beiqing was usually arrogant. He even managed to negotiate with the most shrewd foreigners on the business field. How could he not convince a young girl? Men tend to have a dominant nature they naturally love for conquest. To conquer everything. Aiyang smiled slightly and stated bluntly, "It's pointless to keep discussing when we're not on the same page, Mr. Song. One apologize, but one have things to attend to." As soon as she finished speaking, she picked up her stool and started walking towards the neighboring shop. "Ms. and I." Song Beiqing extended his long leg and blocked Aiyang's path. 1 a.m. serious right now and am not joking with you. And I Yang glanced up at him. And 1 a.m. not joking either, Mr. Song. There's a principle that you ought to understand. Song Beicheng frowned slightly. What principle? And I Yang smiled. She stated clearly and deliberately, sincerity cannot be bought with gold. Once she had spoken, she moved past Song Beicheng and continued on her way toward the neighboring shop. Song Beicheng paused for a moment, then quickly caught up with N.I. Yang. Li Gongcheng, on the other hand, was left standing in shock. He never expected N.I. Yang to refuse. That was a whole 50,000. Money that an ordinary person wouldn't be able to earn in several years. At the neighboring shop, as usual, Lu Wei was sitting in front of the door reading a book. Seeing N.I. Yang approaching, he quickly stood up, smiling. But his smile faded a bit when he saw the well-dressed man following her. He was a tall and handsome man with a distinguished demeanor. Seeing him beside N.I. Yang, Lu Wei had a feeling like they were a well-matched couple, which left him feeling inferior. But he didn't understand why such an excellent man would take a fancy to N.I. Yang. Other than being pretty, N.I. Yang didn't seem to have any other advantages. No education, no family background. Maybe their relationship wasn't what he had been thinking. Thinking this way made Lu Wei feel a little better. He walked over to N.I. Yang, reaching for the stool. N.I. Yang, you're here. N.I. Yang nodded slightly, not handing him the stool. One can do it myself. That was to say, her relationship with Lu Wei was not yet to the point where she would let him carry things for her. Lu Wei's expression changed slightly. He then asked, N.I. Yang, is this man your friend? No. N.I. Yang shook her head slightly. Chapter 59. She only wants to rely on herself. _1 Upon hearing this, Song Beicheng immediately raised his eyes to look at N.I. Yang, disbelief filling his gaze. N.I. Yang might be the first person who didn't want to be his friend. Everyone else was breaking their heads trying to curry favor with him. Even a tiny bit would do. Yet this girl flatly rejected him. Song Beicheng felt a wave of frustration stuck in his chest. He's incredibly uncomfortable. No matter the cost today, he's determined to win this defiant girl over. She's acting like this just to raise her own value. Isn't she? Fine. Hell, indulge her. Song Beicheng knew he was falling into a trap, but he chose to jump right in. He's been invincible for many years, only to confront an annoyance like N.I. Yang today. After putting down the furniture, N.I. Yang continued to walk away, with Song Beicheng persistently following her. His expensive handmade suit not only attracted constant attention from others in the alley, but also appeared out of place in the grimy narrow lane. N.I. Yang, pushing her bicycle, looked at Song Beicheng. Boss Song, one have made myself clear. No matter how much money you offer, I will not agree. Now, I'm heading home, please stop following me. Yet, Song Beicheng obstinately placed his hand on the bicycle handle, impelling N.I. Yang's effort to push her bike away. He leaned slightly towards her and gazed at her. He slowly said, Miss N.I., name your own price as long as you agree. This statement was incredibly domineering. The privilege of the rich. The two stood very close, their breaths mingling, and a faint scent wafted from each other's body. It appeared as if Song Beicheng half-encircled N.I. Yang with his arm, creating an intimate scene reminiscent of a drama. The only difference was the bicycle standing in between them. Despite the slight ambiguity, the scene was beautiful and romantic, as if from a television drama. Whether in her past or present life, N.I. Yang had never been so close to a man. She frowned uncomfortably. Boss Song, you're a person of status. Maintaining propriety is crucial. Can you please restrain yourself? Song Beicheng continued to gaze at N.I. Yang, his eyes filled with scrutiny. Miss N.I., I'm only giving you one opportunity. I'll give you 3 seconds to consider. N.I. Yang pushed Song Beicheng away and coldly said, Even if you offered me 1 million or 10 million, even if you handed me the entire Song family fortune, I would not consider it. Is that clear enough? The sudden force pushed Song Beicheng back enough to almost make him lose his footing. Only a pillar behind him saved him. How could a girl have such strength? Song Beiqing raised his eyes to look at An Yang, then said, Miss An, one should have ambition and be aware of their environment. Why forsake a promising future and choose to live like this instead? His words were slightly harsh, but An Yang didn't get angry. She responded, I wonder if you've ever heard the saying, trust only in yourself. So I won't accept your obstinate charity, Boss Song. One day, time will give me everything I want. Unable to quell the frustration within him, Song Beiqing insistently tried to hire her with a lucrative salary. Wasn't that an act of charity? Song Beiqing's eyes narrowed slightly. Disbelief filled his gaze as he looked at An Yang. These words were not ones you'd expect from a girl in her early teens. Instead, they were more reminiscent of someone who had tasted the ups and downs of life. This girl had guts and ambition. She was far different from the dainty nobles he had encountered before. Though she had thorns, but she radiated an irresistible allure. Such an interesting girl. For a moment, the depth in Song Beiqing's eyes was profound. An Yang, however, didn't care about what Song Beiqing was thinking. She just rode her bike and went off. By this time, An Tsuehua was likely waiting for her at the station. She needs to hurry to get her. An Tsuehua had finished her postpartum confinement, so An Yang wanted to take her out and about. On one hand, it was to let her see the outside world and, on the other, to get some new clothes and daily necessities for An Tsuehua and An Yun. They have been in Beijing for over a month and haven't bought new clothes yet, because An Yang left home so early in the morning. She let An Tsuehua take the 10:30 train. When An Yang arrived at the station, she indeed saw An Tsuehua, who looked different with her newfound confidence, standing there holding the baby. Mom! An Yang walked over, pushing her bike. Yang. An Tsuehua smiled when she saw An Yang. Mom, have you been waiting long? Asked An Yang. An Tsuehua laughed. No, you arrived just as one got off the train. As the mother and daughter reached the bustling streets, An Tsuehua, seeing the flourishing business world, said, The city is so lively, incomparable to the countryside. Mom, do you like it here? An Yang asked with a smile. Yes. An Tsuehua nodded. Who wouldn't like the city? An Yang continued. Then I'll buy a big house here in the future, and we, together with sister's family, can live happily in it. Good. An Tsuehua nodded with joy. Although she knew this wish might be hard to fulfill, she still yearned for it. Mom, please wait here for a moment. They'll park the bike. After that, we can go to the department store. Go ahead. I'll wait here for you. An Yang, pushing her bike, walked to another side, passing an elegant cafe on her way. In the 80s, Beijing was already quite modernized with Western restaurants, bars and ballrooms everywhere. The men and women on the street were also very fashionable, sometimes giving a surreal sense of being back in the future. In fact, many of the later fashion trends overlapped with that of the 80s. A sophisticated-looking woman sat in a window seat of the cafe. She had the latest trendy curly hair, meticulous makeup, arched willow leaf eyebrows, bright red lipstick, sparkling diamond earrings, a luxury watch on her wrist, and beautiful nail polish. Everything about her screamed, rich heiress. Why isn't he here yet? She kept looking at her watch, her brow furrowed with anxiety. She had heard that Mo3 had an odd temperament, cold and aloof, and hard to approach. It seems the rumors were true, but she relished impossible challenges. Mo3, huh? She would conquer him. A confident smile played on the heiress' face. It was only due to Madame Mo's insistence that Mo Baichuan reluctantly agreed to meet this girl. He couldn't express how much he didn't want to go. The driver, who was driving the car, dared not even breathe too loudly. The atmosphere in the car was so oppressive. He was afraid of unintentionally irritating Mr. Mo. Chapter 60: Domineering Counterattack. Just then, the smoothly driving car suddenly hit a large pothole. With a splat, a splash of murky, dirty water flew up, jolting the inside of the car in an upheaval. Mo Baichuan, sitting in the back seat, stayed as calm as Mount Tai. On the other hand, The sudden force caused the driver to harshly knock his head on the steering wheel, seeing stars. As Yen was splashed with dirty water all over, she was completely baffled. What on earth was going on today? Was this Mercury in retrograde? First, she encountered the mad song Beiqing, and now she was covered in dirty water. She took a deep breath, telling herself to stay calm. Anger brings premature aging. She shouldn't be hard on herself. At that moment, the driver's door opened, and a young man stepped out from the car. He walked up to Yen, apologized sincerely. "Comrade, are you all right? I'm really sorry, I'm not familiar with the road conditions here. One didn't know there was a pothole here, are you okay?" Yen was wearing a white button short shirt and black wide-leg trousers that day. Her attire contrasted sharply with the fashionable women on the street. However, she managed to bring a lively vibe to her retro outfit. Since her trousers were black, they didn't seem to be in too bad a condition, but her shirt was a miserable sight with all the dirty water stains on it. Yet, even though she was covered in dirty water, she didn't appear disheveled, but rather uniquely elegant, giving a vibe of a college student from the Republican era, innocent and lovely. This must be the essence of beauty like jade. Seeing that the driver was truly remorseful, and Yen had no intentions to pursue further, she opened her lips to speak. "I'm all right, it's just my clothes are all dirty." Before Yen could finish her sentence, the car window at the back seat gradually came down, interrupting her. "Xiao Zhao, haven't you dealt with people like this before? You still don't know how to handle this?" There was a heavy oppressiveness laced within that cold voice. He was angry. The master was angry. Xiao Zhao, the driver, felt a shiver run down his spine and quickly bowed to Yen. "I'm really sorry, comrade. Take this money and buy yourself a new outfit. We have to go now because of some urgent business." As he finished talking, he took out a large bill from his pocket, handed it to Yen, and turned around to get back into the car. Honestly speaking, Xiao Zhao had seen plenty of such situations after being with Mo Baichuan for so long. There were many socialites in Beijing who tried their best to get his attention, using all kinds of tricks. But he felt that Yen was not like them. Her eyes were pure, lacking any hint of slyness. Moreover, Yen certainly wasn't the one intentionally splashing herself with water. Xiao Zhao, being a driver, was able to distinguish who the schemer was and who the victim was in this situation. The usually calm and collected third master Mo seemed a bit impulsive today. Yen really wasn't angry initially, but that cold voice from the back seat stirred up her anger. She walked up to car door, yanking it open, retorting, "Excuse me, sir. Could you please explain what you mean by people like this?" The man leisurely looked up, and in an instant, Yen's gaze was caught in a pair of deep, icy phoenix eyes. The phrase "born with a remarkable appearance" must have been coined for him. His slightly pursed lips, high-nose bridge, his flawless phoenix eyes emitting a chilling coldness. Each of his exquisite features seemed as if they were personally sculpted by God. Together they created a powerful and captivating aura around him. Even in the midst of a scorching summer, he could make people shiver from coldness. This was a dangerous man and also a familiar man. Yen's pupils contracted slightly, and she quickly recognized him. Wasn't this the mysterious man she encountered in Dam Village last time? What a small world. She really didn't expect to run into him here again today. Though slightly shocked, Yen didn't let any trace of it show on her face. Mo Baichuan's eyes were deep as he watched her, mouth parting slightly. "Do I have to spell out exactly what I mean by that kind of people?" His voice, as always, was cold. In Mo Baichuan's eyes, this accident was anything but coincidental, instead believing it was deliberately plotted by Yen. How could it be that, just like that, water splashed onto her and specifically on his car? Besides, wasn't Yen wearing such a pure and simple outfit too inconsiderate? Could a married woman wear such clothes? Since she was already married, why couldn't she live out her days in peace and humility? Stick to a simple and honest life with someone else? Even if the other party was an old man, it was her choice. Also, Mo Baichuan still didn't understand why Yen stole his watch. Considering all the above, especially the fact that Yen was married, Mo Baichuan didn't think highly of her, and that's why he had spoken out of turn. Moreover, whenever he saw her, he couldn't help but lose some control over himself, even becoming jealous of that old man he had never met. It seemed Yang hadn't recognized him. She raised an eyebrow slightly and said, "Let me guess. You're saying that it's my fault one got soaked because your car splashed water on me?" It seems she really saved a scum last time. Rude and unreasonable, filled with arrogance and self-importance, and acting as if no one else existed. She wondered which family's spoiled brat he was. Such a waste of a handsome face. Mo Baichuan looked at her with a usual frigid face. "You made the mistake of taking this path, and should never have provoked me." All Yang wanted to do was burst out laughing in her mind. Was there something wrong with this man? Did his mental hospital forget to lock the gates? Not only did he not apologize for his mistake, but he was behaving like he was a big shot. She provoked him? Interesting. Did he think he was as universally accepted as RMB? Absurd. Yang smirked slightly. "I could say the same to you. You should never have provoked me." With that, Yang reached out and grabbed Mo Baichuan's collar, pulling him hard, and her elbow struck him square in the chest. With a loud thud, Mo Baichuan was yanked off his car. Water splashed everywhere. Mo Baichuan hadn't anticipated Yang would retaliate, and he certainly hadn't expected her to pull him into a waterhole. He simply lay there in disbelief. The driver, Xiao Zhao, was also shocked. He didn't know how to react to this spectacle. The distinguished Mr. Mo was actually knocked over by a young girl. Was he dreaming? Xiao Zhao rubbed his eyes, but the scene before him remained unchanged. Yang looked down at Mo Baichuan in a condescending manner, threw a large wad of cash onto him and commented, "Hey, raise some money for you. Buy yourself new clothes. I must be leaving now." She radiated an aura of power and dominance. With these words, she sauntered off in the distance. As for such narcissistic, arrogant individuals who disregarded everyone else, they should be dealt with by an eye for an eye, making them understand the concept of not doing to others what one would not wish for oneself. Mo Baichuan watched Yang's retreating figure, his deep jet-black eyes filled with an icy coldness. It was only when Yang was out of sight that Xiao Zhao lent a hand to help Mo Baichuan up, his voice shaking as he asked, "Master, are you all right?" Mo Baichuan, with his usual icy expression, slowly got up from the puddle and said softly, "I'm fine." Chapter 61:1 Want all her information. Although it was only two simple words, they chilled the air like ice, spreading a cold dread. Xiao Zhao carefully helped Mo Baichuan into the back seat, barely daring to breathe, lest he inadvertently upset him again. "Back to the Bo Mansion," Mo Baichuan instructed, his deep voice betraying no emotion. "Yes," Xiao Zhao responded shakily, then cautiously asked, "What about Miss Zhou?" It not that he wanted to intrude, but otherwise, he wouldn't know how to explain to the old lady when he got back. Miss Zhou was at the cafe, waiting for Mo Baichuan's arrival. What mess has this turned into? Mo Baichuan lightly lifted his eyes, and the rearview mirror reflected a chilling cold light. Startled, Xiao Zhao closed his mouth abruptly, not daring to utter another word. Stepping on the accelerator, the car shot off like an arrow. Mo Baichuan half leaned on the back seat, his eyes half closed. No one knew what he was thinking. Despite his silence, there was an ominous feeling of looming crisis. The car stopped at a small Western-style house. Xiao Zhao carefully got out of the car, opened the door for the passenger, but Mo Baichuan showed no intention of getting out. He just sat there. Finally, gathering his courage, Xiao Zhao said, "Master, we've arrived." Only then did Mo Baichuan turn his attention towards him. His deep eyes were completely dark as he ordered, "I want all the information about that girl today. Remember all of it, even her ancestors' details, and I want it by 7 o'clock tonight." He always felt that he hadn't investigated Li Xianxian thoroughly enough, because Yang was nothing like he had imagined. Xiao Zhao stood up straight, answering, "Yes." "Oh my." His master was harsh. The young lady had just retaliated in kind, but he was unsparing. He wouldn't even give her ancestors a break. Watching Mo Baichuan's retreating figure, Xiao Zhao nervously wiped his forehead. Ai Yang arrived at a store, casually picked out a set of clothes to change into, paid, and then hurried to Ai Kuihua's side. The moment Ai Cuihua saw Ai Yang, she grabbed her hand. She was so eager. She didn't even notice Ai Yang's change of clothes and immediately blurted, "Yang Yang, one think I just saw your uncle." Ai Cuihua had her own family too. In her family, she had an elder brother named Ai Daju who had married a transferred, educated youth in his earlier years. After the policy changed, he and his wife moved to the city. Ever since Ai Daju left for the city, Ai Yang had not seen her uncle and his family. In this period, there was also little correspondence. No one knew where Ai Daju had ended up. "Mom, are you sure you saw him clearly? That was really uncle?" Ai Yang asked, frowning slightly. Ai Cuihua nodded assuredly. "I saw it clearly. That was definitely your uncle. If I wasn't worried that you'd be worried about finding me when you got back, I would have chased after him." Ai Cuihua was not confused. There was no way she could mistake her own brother. "Did you see which way uncle went?" Ai Yang continued, asking. "That way." Ai Cuihua pointed in a direction. "I saw your uncle going through that gate. Then let's go over and check it out," Ai Yang said, grabbing hold of her sister's hand. Mother and daughter headed in that direction. Unlike the bustling streets, this was a residential area for factory employees. There was a guard at the gate, and anyone entering or leaving who wasn't an employee of the factory would need to register. At this time, most factories were state-owned enterprises, very formal. Workers were not only allocated dormitories but also received good benefits. It was like being a public servant in the future world. If there was a worker in one's family, it was a matter of great honor. It was even more honorable than getting into college. "Yang Yang, what is this place?" Ai Cuihua asked curiously, looking at the gate. Ai Yang explained to Ai Cuihua. After hearing the explanation, Ai Cuihua exclaimed, "My goodness! So, by what you're saying, your uncle is now a worker?" Ai Yang nodded. "It seems so." Ai Cuihua exclaimed, "Your uncle was a total simpleton when he was younger. I can't believe he's made something of himself now. At last, someone from our Ai family has become accomplished. Let's go and find your uncle and aunt." Ai Yang continued, "Don't rush in yet, Mom. Let me confirm with the gatekeeper first." "Okay." Ai Cuihua replied hastily, "Then you go quickly." Ai Yang approached the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper was very amicable and informed Ai Yang in detail about Ai Daz's situation. Ai Daju had become a permanent worker here 3 years ago. He lived here with his wife Lu Wan and their daughter Lu Xiangxiang. Also, the gatekeeper added that Ai Daju was usually henpecked, often acting like a timid mouse around his wife, Lu Xiangxiang. Ai Yang scowled slightly. Wasn't her cousin's name Ai Xiangxiang? When did it change to Lu Xiangxiang? Had Ai Daju become a kept man? "What's the matter, young lady? How are you related to Ai Daju?" the guard asked, curious. Ai Yang smiled and said, "He's my uncle." The guard laughed. What a surprise Ai Daju has such a beautiful niece. He then wondered, scratching his head, how come I've never heard about Ai Daju having a niece? Especially such a beautiful one. People often say nephews resemble their uncles. But looking at Ai Yang's delicate features, she bore no resemblance to Ai Daz's rough and plump look. This was strange indeed. Ai Yang offered a small smile and thanked the guard before heading back to Ai Cuihua. "Mom, uncle and aunt indeed live here, but let's go find your uncle and aunt," Ai Cuihua said, pulling Ai Yang inside before she could finish her sentence. "Mom, wait a minute. Why don't we buy some gifts to take them?" Ai Yang suggested. Ai Cuihua was eager to see her brother and stubbornly pulled Ai Yang inside. She dismissed the idea saying, "Yang Yang, your uncle and I are siblings. We don't worry about formalities like that. We'll take care of the gifts later. I haven't seen your uncle in so many years." Ai Cuihua had never thought that she would see Ai Daju again in her lifetime. At this moment, All that she could think of was seeing her brother. The gatekeeper called out enthusiastically behind them, "Young lady, Anai Daju lives in Building 68, Unit 101. Don't get it wrong." Anai Yang smiled and replied, "Okay. Thank you, sir." "You're welcome." The guard waved cheerfully. With the guard's help, Anai Yang quickly found Anai Daz's residence. The workers' dormitory was vibrant with a strong sense of the times. There were children playing in the courtyard, adults washing clothes, chatting and laughing. It was very lively. On seeing the strangers approaching, they all threw curious looks at them. "Which family do you belong to?" a woman washing vegetables asked them. Anai Tsuhua, holding her child, smiled and said, "We have come to look for Anai Daju. I am his sister." "Sister," the woman washing vegetables said in surprise. "I thought Daju was an only child in his family. Where did this sister come from?" Chapter 62. Our house is not a refugee camp. Upon hearing this, Anai Tsuehua didn't take the washerwoman's words to heart, instead smiling and saying, "You might be mistaken. 1 a.m. Anai Daz's sister." The washerwoman didn't say anything more, looking at Anai Tsuehua with a complicated expression. "Mom, let's go knock on the door." Anai Yang looked back towards Anai Tsuehua. "Okay." Anai Tsuehua nodded, following Anai Yang forward. After the mother and daughter left, the yard began buzzing with discussion. "What do you think that was all about?" "Who knows? Lu Wan has always been a deep thinker. I think Anai Daju is a coward. Could he behave so scared of his wife if he wasn't a coward?" Followed by a round of quiet laughter. Anai Yang led her mother and sister to the door of room 101 and softly knocked on it. The door was quickly opened. "Who is it?" The one who opened the door was a curious-looking girl of about 18 or 19 years old, peering at Anai Yang with a smile on her face. Anai Yang gently smiled. "Cousin Xiang Xiang. 1 a.m. Anai Yang." Upon hearing this, the smile on Lu Xiangxiang's face immediately disappeared. Her gaze passed over Anai Yang to focus on Anai Tsuehua behind her. Anai Tsuehua immediately greeted her with a beaming smile. "Xiang Xiang, I'm your aunt." Unexpectedly, Lu Xiangxiang not only failed to greet them, but her face suddenly turned cold. She turned around and walked inside impatiently, shouting, "Mom, there are people looking for you." Upon seeing this, the smile on Anai Yang's face slowly faded. It seems her cousin wasn't particularly welcoming towards them. Anai Tsuehua quickly pulled Anai Yang's hand, whispering, "Xiang Xiang is young and doesn't understand. Don't mind her. Your uncle and aunt will come out in a moment." Anai Yang nodded slightly. After all, they hadn't come all this way just to see this cousin of hers. "Who is it?" Lu Wan, who was cutting vegetables in the kitchen, asked. "Don't know." Lu Xiangxiang sat down on the sofa to watch TV. "Didn't you go and open the door? How can you not know?" Lu Wan wiped her hands and walked out of the kitchen. While eating sunflower seeds, Lu Xiangxiang said, "Why don't you go and see for yourself?" She couldn't be bothered dealing with those poor relatives from the countryside. Lu Wan walked out with a puzzled expression on her face. "Sister-in-law, it's me, Culling." Seeing Lu Wan coming over, Anai Tsuehua immediately greeted her with a smile. "Aunt." Anai Yang followed behind, politely saying hello. Lu Wan was stunned for a moment, then finally reacted and smirked. "Oh, it's you guys. How did you find this place?" Anai Tsuehua said, "I saw my brother on the street, and then asked around until I found this place." "Oh." Lu Wan nodded and then continued, "Well, since you're here, come in and sit for a while." Anai Yang could tell that Aunt Lu Wan didn't seem very welcoming either, but Anai Tsuehua seemed oblivious, following Lu Wan into the house while exclaiming, "Sister-in-law, your home is really beautifully decorated. Rural people will always be rural people. Look at her behaving like Lu Lao Lao visiting the Grandview Garden." Lu Wan glanced at Anai Tsuehua, a hint of disdain flashing in her eyes, casually remarking, "Oh, it's nothing. It's a house allocated by the company. We just casually decorated it." Once they entered the room, Lu Wan looked at Lu Xiangxiang, who was cracking melon seeds, and yelled, "All you do is crack melon seeds. Go quickly and get the sofa cover one washed yesterday. Such a bother, Lu Xiangxiang murmured with dissatisfaction, coldly retreating to get the sofa cover. Lu Wan turned around and looked at Anai Tohua and her daughter, smiling. I've been too busy these days. Haven't even had time to cover the sofa with a cover. I'm sorry that you two will have to stand for a while. She covers the sofa when guests come? This Lu Wan is really interesting. And Aiyang slightly raised her eyebrows, but didn't say anything. After all, Lu Wan was her elder, and it wouldn't be appropriate for her to say something out of turn. And Ai Tsuehua laughed and said, Not at all tired, just standing here for a while is fine. Don't fuss over me, coming to my brother's house feels just like being at home. Her own home? Lu Wan scoffed silently in her mind. And Ai Tsuehua really didn't consider herself an outsider. This was Lu Wan's house. How was it related to Anai Tsuehua in the slightest? She wondered how they even managed to find this place. Disgusting. Lu Xiangxiang took out the sofa cover and handed it to Lu Wan. Here. Lu Wan quickly covered the sofa and then looked up at Anai Tsuehua, smiling. Please, have a seat. Anai Tsuehua sat down with the child in her arms. No sooner had Anai Tsuehua sat down, Lu Xiangxiang suddenly stood up from the sofa, her eyebrows knitted and her face expressing disgust. What is this horrible smell? It's unbearable. Lu Wan also covered her nose and hinted in a meaningful tone. Yes, one can smell it too. How awful. Please open the windows and let some fresh air in. And Ai Tsuehua didn't react immediately. Instead, surprised, she said, There isn't any smell. I haven't noticed anything. She remembered Lu Wan as a gentle and virtuous woman, so she didn't give it much thought. When Lu Wan was a young, educated urbanite sent to work in a small countryside village, she was indeed gentle and virtuous. But now, she was far from the pitiful Lu Wan of those days, no longer feeling the need to suppress her own temperament to please others. In the words of Feng Shui, fortunes have reversed, and now it's Anai Daz's turn to try to win her over. Lu Wan laughed and said, The smell is awful. Perhaps it's your sense of smell that is off. And Aiyang knew perfectly well what Lu Wan and her mother were up to, but kept silent to let Anai Tsuehua see their true colors and to prevent her from being deceived in the future. Having gone through so many things, it was about time Anai Tsuehua as a mother grew up. Really? Anai Tsuehua replied, her eyebrows knitted with doubt. Lu Wan didn't answer directly, but instead stood up and said, Let me pour you a cup of tea. Anai Tsuehua quickly grasped Lu Wan's hand. I'm not thirsty, sister-in-law, you don't have to trouble yourself. Oh. Lu Wan withdrew her hand with a shudder and sat back down on the sofa. Pouring a cup of tea was really just a casual, offhand suggestion. She hadn't actually planned to do it. Lu Wan looked at Anai Tsuehua and asked, So when did you three arrive in Beijing? Was it just the three of you? Where are the others? Where's Mu Jinbao? Isn't there an elderly lady at your home too? Did she come with you? Concerning this, Anai Tsuehua sighed helplessly. I'm divorced from Mu Jinbao, so Ingzi decided to bring us to Beijing. Anai Tsuehua was still speaking when Lu Wan stood up in surprise. Divorced? Yes. Anai Tsuehua nodded. So you came to Beijing to rely on us because you divorced Mu Jinbao? Lu Wan was taken aback, staring at Anai Tsuehua in shock. A divorced woman with 2 children in tow. Was she planning to freeload off their family? Oh God! The mere thought of it made Lu Wan's scalp crawl. She was now regretting letting them in. She should never have let them step into their house. What a predicament! Getting rid of them would not be easy. Anai Tsuehua thought that Lu Wan was reprimanding her for not visiting them sooner. So she quickly explained, No, sister-in-law, it's a misunderstanding. We didn't know you all lived in Beijing, otherwise Ingzi and one would have come to visit you earlier. Luckily, one bumped into my brother on the street today. Come visit earlier? What did she mean by that? At this moment, Lu Xiangxiang chimed in from the side mockingly. Our house is not a refugee camp, you know? Lu Wan immediately turned to Lu Xiangxiang, pretending to scold her. What kind of language is that, young lady? She then turned back to Anai Tsuehua, smiling. Xiangxiang's just playing around. Don't take it to heart. Chapter 63 Do not do unto others what you do not wish for yourself. Lu Xiangxiang is her own niece. As an elder relative, how could she possibly feud with her blood niece? And Zuihua laughed and shook her head. I don't mind. It's just a child's. The sentence hanging. She continued, Sister-in-law, you've been good with my brother for these past years, right? Lu Wan nodded. We're doing all right, but that's mostly thanks to my own younger brother. Otherwise, do you think Daju could have become a worker just by his own merit? If my brother hadn't pulled some strings for him, he wouldn't have accomplished much of anything. And Zuihua gave an awkward laugh and changed the subject. Sister-in-law, are you and my brother both working at the factory now? Instead of answering, Lu Wan asked, Did Yang Yang quit school? Yes. And Zuihua nodded and confessed with shame. It's really my failing as a mother. It's been hard on the child. Lu Wan continued. It's really a pity that Yang Yang dropped out of school so early. What was her educational background? Although Zuihua wasn't sure of Lu Wan's intent, she still answered, Middle school. Middle school? When Lu Xiangxiang heard this, she instantly felt relieved. Even though she wasn't as pretty as Yang, her educational level was much higher. She was in her senior year of high school and could take the college entrance exam next year. In the future, she would go to college and marry someone from the city. No one in the city would want to marry an illiterate like Yang. By that time, she would rank above Yang, and so would her children and her descendants. Yang, a bumpkin, was destined only to be a green leaf accentuating the beauty of a flower. Thinking like this, Lu Xiangxiang felt a great sense of superiority. Her gaze towards Yang became increasingly disdainful. Lu Wan said with great regret, Only middle school. One was thinking of asking my brother to find a way to get Yang Yang a job at the factory. But now, the factory only hires those with high school education and above. How did things turn out this way? In reality, Lu Wan only wanted to cut Zuihua off. Yang work in the factory? Dream on. Zuihua and her daughter were simply acknowledging their kinship with them because their family had flourished as factory workers. Such shamelessness. Want to take advantage of their family? No chance. Zuihua laughed and said, That's all right, sister-in-law. I appreciate your kindness. Actually, one wanted Yang Yang to continue studying anyway. Before Zuihua could finish, the door was opened. Daju, dressed in a worker's uniform, walked in from outside, carrying a slab of meat. Seeing him, Zuihua got up excitedly. Brother! Daju stood there frozen, taking a moment to react. There was no joy that should come from a long-awaited reunion with family on his face. Rather, a hint of distaste. Zuihua? What are you doing here? Seeing Dazu's reaction, Yang knew. This uncle was completely hopeless. He was no longer the Daju from Dam Village. Zuihua didn't think about it too much and quickly pulled Yang closer. Yang, this is your uncle? Say hello. Yang obediently said, Hello, uncle. Daju frowned deeply. Why did you bring the child with you? Lu Wan crossed her arms and stood aside, adding a sentence like she was watching a play. Tohua divorced Mu Jinbao, so she purposely came to Beijing to seek refuge with you. Hearing this, Dazu's face changed instantly. What? Divorced? How could you get divorced? Why did you get divorced? What shameless thing have you done? Mu Jinbao wants to divorce you? How did the Mu family end up with someone like you? At these words, Yang frowned slightly, simply observing Daju. As a brother, his first reaction to his sister's divorce was not concern for whether she had been wronged in her married home, but questioning whether she had done something wrong. He even cursed his sister for being a living treasure. This brother? He's really too much. It's not like that. Zuihua immediately became panicked, crying as she spoke, Brother, listen to me. It's not like that. One genuinely cannot stay in the Mu family any longer. You don't know. They are simply inhuman, not only wanting to abandon my oldest son, but also planning to marry Yang Yang off to a eunuch. To make matters worse, Mu Jinbao brought back an unidentified woman who is carrying his child. How can one continue to live this life when things are like this? Enai Dazhu was about to be angered to death by Enai Tsuehua. What? You're not capable enough to keep your own man, and now you've come here to complain to him. A cast-off shoe, not embarrassed in the slightest. He had finally started having some good days and he could not let this useless sister drag him down. Enai Dazhu furiously pointed at Enai Tsuehua and shouted, "It's your own fault for being incompetent. Who made you unable to bear a son? You can't bear a son yourself and won't let him find someone else to do so? Do you want to watch the Mu family line die out?" Enai Tsuehua never expected these words to come out of her own brother's mouth. It was different from the sibling recognition she had imagined. With tear-filled eyes she asked, "What about Yang Yang? She's still so young. She's only 17. Does she deserve to be married off to a eunuch?" Enai Dazhu coldly replied, "So, what if she gets married? It's the will of the parents and the word of the matchmaker. As a girl, should she not get married and just stay at home living off someone else's earnings?" "Uncle, you're really good at distorting the truth." Enai Yang spoke with a glowing smile. "If one remember correctly, cousin Xiangxiang is a year older than me. The eunuch hasn't taken a wife yet. Since girls are meant to marry sooner or later, why don't you let her marry him?" "Oh, and Enai Yang continued, "Auntie hasn't given you a son until now either. Are you planning to find another woman to bear you a son? Or have you already found one?" As she said this, Enai Yang turned her gaze towards Lu Wan. Enai Yang's words cut deep. Lu Wan was glaring fiercely at Enai Dazhu, grinding her teeth. She seemed to want to eat Enai Dazhu alive. No wonder she felt Enai Dazhu had been acting strange recently. It turns out he wanted a son. He was harboring secrets. The audacity of Enai Dazhu. Wait and see how she dealt with him behind closed doors later. On the other hand, Enai Dazhu was so angry that his face turned white. It had never occurred to him that Enai Yang would say such things. This disobedient niece, what audacity! She even dared to contradict her own uncle. But it was impossible for him to refute any part of her statement. "Insolent! Insolent! One will beat you to death, you disrespectful wretch." Enai Dazhu directly raised his right hand, aiming a slap at Enai Yang's face. He was Yang Yang's uncle. Even if he really beat her to death, no one could do anything to him. This scene scared Lu Xiangxiang into covering her mouth, but her eyes gleamed with a schadenfreude. "Hit her. I hope he beats this country bumpkin until she becomes disfigured." Whenever she saw Enai Yang's beautiful face, she felt nauseous. How could such a beautiful face be born on Enai Yang? Life is truly unfair. Whether in terms of background or level of education, she was 100 times better than Enai Yang. Why was she not even half as beautiful as Enai Yang? Enai Yang looked at the hand coming towards her with a calm expression on her face. She gently raised her hand, grabbed Enai Daz's wrist and laughed. "Can't handle it? Didn't you ever hear the saying, 'What you don't wish upon yourself, do not do unto others'? You can't even handle this, so what gives you the right to force it onto me and my mother? You really are a great brother, a great uncle." Chapter 64. You won't be able to climb high someday. _1 Suddenly, the room was quiet. So quiet that only breathing could be heard. All eyes in the room fell on Enai Yang. No one expected that Enai Yang would easily grab Enai Daz's hand, let alone that the country girl would say such words. She was as composed as if she were not a teenager, let alone a recent arrival from the countryside. "Let go of me." Dazhu struggled, but Yang's hand seemed to be an unwavering clamp around his wrist. If he hadn't experienced it himself, Enai Dazhu wouldn't believe that he was less strong than this little girl. "Let go of your uncle, you child," Tsuehua quickly said as she held her child and walked over to Yang. Enai Yang gave Enai Tsuehua a look, then released his hand. Enai Dazhu glared at the both of them, pointing to the door and yelled, "Look at the fine daughter you've raised. No wonder the Mu family refused to accept you. Get out of my sight. One don't know you." Hearing this, Tsuehua panicked and quickly pulled on Yang's arm. Yang, quickly apologize to your uncle. Say sorry." Then she turned to Dazhu saying, Brother, she didn't do it on purpose. She's still young. Don't mind her. Tohua appeared extremely humble. Her parents were deceased, and all that was left for her was this brother, Daju. As the saying goes, the eldest brother is as one's father. Whatever Daju said, whatever he did, it was for her own good. After all, no brother would harm his own sister. Lu Xiangxiang held Lu Wan's arm, her gaze filled with disdain, whispered, "Mom, look at her groveling. Do you think she really intends to stay in our house?" Suihua has no shame. Any reputable person would have turned their backs on Daju with such treatment, but she goes on to apologize to him. Villagers stay villagers. She has no backbone. For the sake of staying in their house, she has abandoned even her dignity. Don't worry, Lu Wan patted Lu Xiangxiang's thigh. One will absolutely not let this pauper stay in our house. Lu Xiangxiang nodded, her face full of scornful smile. Yang, hurry up and apologize to your uncle. Seeing Yang says nothing, Suihua looks like she's about to cry. And Yang looked down at Tohua. Mom, can't you see? They don't even want to acknowledge you as a sister, let alone welcome us. Upon hearing this, Tohua quickly interjected, Yang, don't talk nonsense. She then turned to Daju and Lu Wan, explaining, brother, sister-in-law, that's not what Yang meant. Please don't misunderstand. Yang had nothing to say. She never imagined that Suihua would still not see the true colors of Daz's family, even as things had escalated to this point. Lu Wan stepped forwards with a smile. Since we're talking about this now, one have to clarify something. Qiawa, you and Daju aren't real siblings. You don't share any blood relationship. You're just an orphan who Daz's dad picked up. If you really are his sister, why wouldn't we welcome you? But you are not. And now Daju has married into the Lu family, he has even less to do with you. If you have any shame, you should leave our house. Go before we call the police and things get ugly. Lu Wan's words were hit like a thunderbolt on a clear day, striking right at Suihua. Suihua just stood there, unable to react for a long time. Yang was taken aback as well. She never expected that her mother and Daju did not share any blood relation. No wonder Daju was such a despicable man, while Suihua had no trace of deceit. Plus, they did not share any noticeable resemblance. After learning this, Yang inexplicably felt relieved. It took a moment for Suihua to look up at Daju, and then disbelief colored her tone. Brother, Daz's expression gradually went calm. Lu Wan is right. I'm not your brother. You're nothing but an unwanted wild child. Leave now and don't come back pretending to be family. Brother. Suihua was reluctant to accept this reality and stared at Daju. I told you, I'm not your brother. When will you get it? Daju glared at Suihua. Don't think I don't know what you're planning. You think you can freeload off my family? Dream on. Suihua clung onto Daz's arm, weeping. Brother, tell me this isn't true. You're my brother, right? You're my brother. Daju pushed Suihua away roughly. Have you no shame? How could you still insist on this after what I've said? Can't you understand? The sound of their quarrel drew a lot of attention. Soon, a crowd surrounded them. What's going on? Who knows? We just got here. No matter the era, there will always be rubbernecks. Seizing the moment, Lu Wan shouted loudly. Look at her. Have you ever seen such a shameless person? Our Daju is an only child. His parents died long ago. He doesn't even have a sister. This woman is trying to exploit Daju because they grew up in the same village. Now that Daju has a job and is making money, she's claiming to be his relative. We can't even get her to leave. Yeah, I thought it was strange too. Daju is an only child. Yet this woman insists she is his sister. So she's a con artist. I was thinking about it too. She doesn't look like Daju at all. My God, how can there be such a shameless person in the world? Listening to the murmurs around her, Yang looked at Daju and Lu Wan. Her red lips parted slightly as she said word by word. Remember this, you look down on me now, but one day you won't be able to reach me. Although her tone was calm, it was imbued with an inexplicable power that resonated deeply. The crowd looked at each other, their eyes reflecting shock. Though she was just a young girl, she gave off an inexplicable pressure. With that, Anai Yang held her little sister in one hand and pulled Anai Tsuehua with the other. "Mom, let's go." Anai Tsuehua followed behind Anai Yang, dazed and lost. Lu Wan laughed at Anai Yang's retreating figure, sneering, "A country bumpkin talking big? Aren't you afraid of spraining your waist? If you're really that capable, why did you have to beg us today? You're embarrassing yourself." Lu Xiangxiang also giggled. "Exactly. If she's so capable, why did she even come beg us today? Too high to reach, huh? She really thinks she's something else. Disgusting. What would a country bumpkin like Anai Yang be capable of? Maybe she'd only end up cleaning streets in the city. Maybe she would not even qualify for that. The lower class will always be the lower class." Anai Yang led Anai Tsuehua and her little sister out of the workers' compound. All the way, Anai Tsuehua seemed to have lost her soul, Anai Daz's icy words echoing in her ears. She was 36 and had just heard about her past from her brother's mouth. For a moment, it was hard to digest this information. Was she really adopted? Where are her biological parents now? Chapter 65. Take action to teach a lesson. Anai Tsuehua was curious about who her real parents were. So was Anai Yang, because in her past life, she remembered foreigners coming to Dam Village in search of their relatives. They were well-dressed and driving a car, attracting a lot of attention. But by then, Anai Tsuehua had already died, and Anai Yang was confined at home by God. She didn't know much about the outside world and didn't know whether those people looking for relatives were related to Anai Tsuehua or not. Was Anai Tsuehua also abandoned because of the preference for boys over girls? Or was there some other hidden story? Anai Yang frowned slightly. The mother and daughter walked together. When they passed by the guard, he warmly asked, "How come you came out so quickly? Did you find Anai Daju?" Anai Yang smiled and said, "We found the wrong person." The guard scratched his head. "I was wondering how Anai Daju, the only child in his family, had a sister." "So you found the wrong person, considering Anai Kuihua's condition?" Anai Yang found a restaurant to have a meal while consoling her mother. After ordering, Anai Yang poured Anai Tsuehua a glass of water. "Mom, don't be sad. Those kinds of people are not worth it. That kind of brother it's better not to recognize." "Ah." Anai Tsuehua nodded with red eyes, but her eyes were filled with sadness. Anai Yang sighed, continued, "Mom, even if Anai Daju doesn't recognize you, you still have me and my sister. Don't worry, one day, I will make them regret what they did today." As she spoke, Anai Yang's eyes overflowed with self-confidence, surging with radiance. Anai Tsuehua tightly held Anai Yang's hand and nodded. "Yes, Mama is not sad. Mama is not sad at all." Anai Yang was right. Anai Daju was absolutely ruthless in dealing with things. If she still thought about this brother, then she would be a fool. In the future, she and Anai Yang will work hard to live a good life together and won't let anyone ridicule them anymore. Anai Yang continued, "Then you should smile. You know, a smile can shorten 10 years of life." Looking at such a sensible daughter, Anai Tsuehua showed a smile. "That's right." Anai Yang smiled slightly. "Mom, in the future, we don't need to be sad for someone unimportant. Just live our lives well. The most important thing is to live in the present. Let the past be the past." "Ah." Anai Tsuehua nodded. After eating, the mother and daughter went to stroll in the department store with the child. This was Anai Kuihua's first time shopping in such a high-end mall, her eyes full of curiosity. At this time, the department stores were all state-owned, so the salespeople were quite arrogant, often looking at people with disdain. After all, working in a state-owned company was considered a guaranteed job, which most people couldn't reach. In the future, the customer is king. But at this time, it was the salesperson who was king. The customer had to look at their faces. Seeing Anai Yang and Anai Tsuehua dressed in average clothes, and with a child, these salespeople didn't take them seriously. The answers to their questions were dismissive, showing an extreme impatience. Because these people were obviously country bumpkins from the countryside. And Yang didn't mind. She took an Tsuehua and chose clothes from one counter to another. Mom, I think this one suits you. And Yang picked up a matching skirt suit and handed it to an Tsuehua. It's a stylish suit, a floral plaid shirt on top and a black skirt below, with a subtle floral pattern on the skirt. And Tsuehua quickly waved her hands to refuse. It's for young girls like you, not suitable for me. And Yang smiled and said, which young girl would wear this? Besides, you're not old, go try it on. This suit really suits you. And Yang pushed an Tsuehua towards the fitting room. Just then, a sales assistant who was standing nearby walked up to them, pointing and ordering, you can't try on this dress. If you try it on, you have to buy it. Hearing this, an Tsuehua immediately put the dress down, scared. Let's not try it. Let's not try it. Yang, let's go. And Yang isn't someone easy to bully. After all, in her previous life, she owned and managed over 100 restaurants and carried an aura of assertive composure. And Yang smiled at the sales assistant. Can't try? Can you show me the rule in this store that specifically states this dress cannot be tried on? Also, where is the rule that says if you try on something you must buy it? Or do you mean this department store is owned by your family and you can make up such rules as you like? And Yang was smiling as she spoke, but the sales assistant couldn't detect any humor in her expression. How odd. Although she was just a teenager, her formidable presence felt like a giant ship prevailing against winds and currents. And Yang's lips slightly parted as she said, please fetch your supervisor now. I want to know how your supervisor normally trains employees. Perspiration broke out in a cold sweat on the sales assistant. She never expected an Yang to confront her like this. The usually sharp sales assistant had completely misread an Yang. If their superiors found out about today's incident, she would certainly lose her secure position. She had thought an Yang was just an easy-to-bully hillbilly, but it turned out she was tougher than the spoiled city girls. Let's go, Yang. Let's leave. And Tsuehua stuttered, her voice trembling with fear. And Yang turned to an Tsuehua, reassuring her softly, don't worry, Mom. Everyone is equal now. And Tsuehua had just arrived from the countryside, carrying an innate sense of insignificance where she felt she was always a step below others, no matter where she was. And Yang secretly made up her mind to help her mother get rid of these obsolete habits and learn to be truly independent and strong. This is why today's incident definitely needed to be properly resolved, so her mother could face her own worthiness. Seeing an Tsuehua so scared, a flicker of contempt ignited in the sales assistant's heart. Despite an Tsuehua being an unsophisticated country bumpkin, who could ignore the fact she had such a formidable daughter? Knowing when to rein in during the troubled times, the sales assistant quickly changed her tune. Ladies, one apologize for the misunderstanding just now. This dress can indeed be tried on. Please go ahead. And Yang looked at the sales assistant, her tone even and calm. I want you to apologize to my mother now. Her tone was subtle, yet resounding, allowing no room for dispute. Apologize? The sales assistant was taken aback, looking at Yang incredulously. She was expected to apologize to a country bumpkin? How was that possible? But when she met Yang's clear, icy gaze, she quickly capitulated. Feigning respect, she turned to Tsuehua. I'm sorry for the misunderstanding, ma'am. Please forgive me. Worried that Yang would not be satisfied, she even gave a deep bow. Tsuehua was dumbfounded to see the sales assistant actually apologizing to her. She responded somewhat dazedly, It's okay. With the apology and the bow given, Yang decided not to stoop to the sales assistant's level. In the first place, Yang just wanted to peacefully help Tsuehua buy some suitable clothes without stirring up trouble. But it was the sales assistant who had ignited the dispute. If she didn't fight back, they might think she was a pushover. Yang picked up the dress and guided Tsuehua to a nearby fitting room. Mom, I will wait for you outside. Tsuehua responded helplessly, You, child. The entire scene had been witnessed by a tall and imposing figure, Going up from the same tall figure, a man in a black suit was revealed. He was wearing a black hat that shrouded his features, making his chiseled jawline the only visible part of his face. The man exuded an aura of mystery and prestige. Chapter 66. Driven by the times, directed by the overall situation under Sir One. The man just stood there, the corner of his mouth lifting into a light smile. Originally, he thought this mother-daughter duo would definitely be at a disadvantage facing the aggressive salesgirl. To his surprise, a girl who looked only about 16 or 17 years old would have such a strong counterattack. Every word, every sentence, left him dumbfounded and deeply impressed. Many city-bred girls wouldn't necessarily have her audacity. Just then, a stocky middle-aged man with a beer belly approached from behind, stood in front of the man, and respectfully said, "This way, please." The man slowly withdrew his gaze and took a step forward. Although he moved casually, his manner radiating an immense presence. Regardless of where he was, he existed like a king. As An Yang waited by the fitting room for An Tsuehua, she suddenly noticed a gaze, both measuring and authoritative, looking her way. An Yang glanced back, only to see a tall, imposing figure, with a stature as towering as a jade tree. Even his silhouette was enough to command awe and respect. Being new to Beijing, she didn't recognize such a high-ranking figure in society. Maybe she had made a mistake. An Yang casually withdrew her gaze and didn't give it any further thought. About 5 minutes later, An Tsuehua emerged from the fitting room. Because it was her first time wearing a skirt, she seemed particularly awkward, constantly tugging at the hemline. An Yang looked at her emerging mother and felt a momentary daze. Indeed, clothes make the man. With this outfit on, An Tsuehua seemed like a completely different person. Her skin was naturally fair, and she had peach blossom eyes that were very similar to An Yang's. Added to the dietary and medicinal treatments of the past month which had faded the freckles and wrinkles on her face, she looked like she was in her late 20s. Where did she resemble a 36-year-old woman? Seeing An Yang's stunned expression, An Tsuehua nervously said, Yang, is it really ugly? I'll take it off right away." Turning around, An Tsuehua was about to head back into the fitting room. "Wait, Mom." An Yang immediately stopped her mother. "What's wrong?" An Tsuehua looked back, confused. An Yang led An Tsuehua in front of a mirror. "Take a look yourself." When An Tsuehua saw the reflection in the mirror, she was shocked. She had never imagined she could have a day like this. Everyone has a love for beauty. Even An Tsuehua, a married woman, was no exception. At that moment, she found herself overcome by complex emotions. In all the years of her marriage, this was the first time she wore such a beautiful dress. Truly looked very stunning. Even more stunning than the red wedding dress she wore on her wedding day. Yang, is this really me?" An Tsuehua asked nervously, grasping An Yang's hand. "Mom, if it's not you, who could it be?" An Yang responded, "You look really stunning in this dress." An Tsuehua stood in front of the mirror, examining her reflection up and down, then said, "It's beautiful, yes, but it might not be very practical for getting work done." An Tsuehua was a practical woman, always considering the finer details. An Yang laughed and said, "Do you think we're still in Dam Village? We don't have to toil in the fields anymore. What heavy work could there possibly be? We're buying this dress." An Tsuehua looked around the upscale shop with hesitation. "This place is so fancy. The dress must be expensive, right? You're working hard to earn money. Let's just forget about it." An Yang casually replied, "Money is meant to be spent. Otherwise it's just paper. Plus, it's not that expensive." Learning from previous experiences, the salesgirl managed to hide her facial expressions well, even though she still didn't believe the mother and daughter could afford such a dress. She simply said, "This dress costs 28 yuan. 28 yuan might just be enough to buy a pound of beef in future. But in this era, it could cover 2 months of rent. A common worker's monthly wage is only 28 yuan. Upon hearing this, An Tsuehua turned pale with fright. "So expensive? Forget it. Forget it." The saleswoman knew this would happen. Contempt gradually appeared in her eyes, and she said impatiently, "This is the latest style from Guangguan. Of course it's a bit pricey with such high-quality material. If you don't want it, I'll put it away." Two paupers. They can't afford clothes but still strut around here like big shots. Disgusting. And Aiyang gave a faint smile. "Well, take this one. Wrap it up." The saleswoman didn't expect an Aiyang would suddenly say such a thing. The contempt in her eyes quickly turned to astonishment. Wrap it up? Is she boasting or serious? Before the saleswoman could react, an Aiyang casually pointed at a few clothes they had just looked at and said, "Well, also take this one and this one. Wrap them all together." You want all of them?" The saleswoman nervously swallowed. And Aiyang nodded slightly. "Yes. Yang, why are you buying so many?" And Ai Tsuehua quickly tried to stop an Aiyang. And Aiyang laughed and said, "We can't have you wearing the same skirt every day, can we?" And Aiyang had a keen eye for fashion. All the clothes she had just picked out suited an Ai Tsuehua perfectly. "But I don't need so many. Besides, these clothes are too expensive. One do have clothes. A single dress costs 28 yuan, so all these clothes must cost nearly 100, right? The thought of it alone makes my heart ache," and Ai Tsuehua remarked. And Aiyang continued, "It's not that much. It's only 4 items including this dress." The clothes they brought from Dam Village were all old and patched up. They were obviously unsuitable for now, so an Aiyang went ahead and bought an Ai Tsuehua 4 new outfits. Besides that dress, the other 3 were everyday clothes. But an Ai Tsuehua was about to say something else, but an Aiyang gently pressed her shoulder and said, "Mother, no more buts. We're no longer in Dam Village. Our lives are going to get better, and we can definitely afford a few pieces of clothing." The saleswoman next to them made a complete attitude flip, asking them very respectfully, "Do you want me to wrap them up for you now?" And Aiyang glanced at her. "Wrap it. All right, please wait a moment." The saleswoman bowed slightly, smiled sweetly, then turned around to wrap the clothes. Seeing her like this, an Ai Tsuehua surprisedly said, "Why did this young lattice attitude change so fast? Just like flipping a book? She was so indifferent just now." And Aiyang laughed and said, "Just the way of the world. It's not her fault." "Oh." And Ai Tsuehua nodded in a half-understanding way. The 4 pieces of clothing cost a total of 108 yuan. And Aiyang willingly took out the money to pay, while an Ai Tsuehua next to her felt heartache. She never thought there would be a day when she would spend 100 yuan on clothes. 108 yuan. It's almost the annual income of the Mu family. After buying the clothes, an Aiyang took an Ai Tsuehua to the lingerie counter. Bras have existed since 1914, but they just hadn't been brought to the countryside yet. And Aiyang was already 17 and still wearing the ancient belly band, while an Ai Tsuehua hadn't even seen a bra before. Therefore, in the countryside at that time, many women's breasts began to sag prematurely before they were even 30 years old. Although an Aiyang had been paying attention to dietary skincare recently, an Ai Kuihua's breasts were already showing signs of sagging. However, with the help of a bra and the dietary skincare, she would definitely have a perfect bust shape. This was the first time an Ai Tsuehua had seen a bra, and she curiously asked, Yang, what is this?" Chapter 67 becomes stronger. Don't hold your daughter back on her one seeing an Ai Tsuehua like this. And Ai Yan whispered a few words in her ear. After an Ai Tsuehua understood the purpose of these strange clothes, she promptly blushed and felt uncomfortable all over. Yang, let's go," she said. And Ai Yan laughed and said, "Mom, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. These days everyone in the city wears these. Not only can they prevent female diseases, but they also prevent sagging breasts." And Ai Tsuehua still felt a little uncomfortable. "Everyone in the city wears these?" "Yes." And Ai Yan nodded, pulling an Ai Tsuehua along. "Mom, you pick a style you like." And Ai Kuihua's face turned as red as a boiled shrimp. "Anyway, it's worn inside. Any style will do." Seeing an Ai Tsuehua like this, and Ai Yan didn't make it difficult for her. She picked 2 styles suitable for young girls and young women and told the salesperson, "Could we have 2 pieces each of C and D cup in these styles?" The C cups were for her and the D cups were for Ni Tsuehua. So all of Ni Yan's good genes were inherited from Ni Tsuehua. Of course, the dietary therapy she underwent recently also played a role. Those beauty and health recipes were not consumed for nothing. As a woman herself, envy couldn't be hidden in the sales assistant's eyes when Ni Yan mentioned the sizes. Who would have thought that such a slender girl had such a full-bodied figure? And she was so pretty, too. Life is really unfair. 4 pieces for 98 yuan. The salesperson continued. 98 yuan? A small piece of fabric was that expensive. Ni Tsuehua was taken aback. And just as she was about to stop Ni Yan had already paid. Ni Yan noticed Ni Kuihua's concerns and reassured her in a low voice. Mom, don't worry. We have money now. We don't have to be as frugal as before. Our future life will be like flowers blooming, getting better every day. Ni Tsuehua looked at Ni Yan's radiant eyes, unconsciously nodding her head. After buying the underwear, Ni Yan also bought Ni Yun several sets of clothes and finally shoes. Head to toe, inside and out, everything was renewed. After leaving the department store, Ni Yan took Ni Tsuehua to visit some grocery stores, buying some daily necessities. In the past, Ni Tsuehua always stayed in the countryside, with little exposure to the world and a narrow worldview. Looking at the bustling and prosperous streets of Beijing, Ni Tsuehua realized how insignificant she had been. Looking at her excellent daughter beside her, Ni Tsuehua secretly decided to be strong in the future and not hold Ni Yan back. After shopping and returning home, it was already past 7 in the evening. There wasn't enough time to cook. So, Ni Yan cooked a large pot of health porridge. The porridge contained shrimps, greens, lean meat, and diced carrots. It was not only delicious but also had the effect of whitening the skin and enhancing the bust. While the porridge simmered in the casserole, Ni Yan made several potato pancakes. After brushing a layer of chili oil on the potato pancake and sprinkling it with sesame and chopped peanuts, the taste of the spicy and fresh pancake paired with the delicious health porridge was simply divine. 3 women effortlessly finished a pot of porridge and more than 10 potato pancakes. The time since Ni Tsuehua and her daughter moved here had probably been the happiest for Ni Chengui since she lost her husband. In the past, every time she returned from work, she would find cold pots and stoves. So, she didn't want to leave work and didn't want to go home. Now, the thing she looked forward to the most was getting off work every day. Ni Tsuehua and Ni Yan, although not her relatives, made her feel a sense of home. After dinner, Ni Tsuehua showed Ni Chengui the new clothes they bought on the street today. With such a good daughter as Ni Yang, Ni Tsuehua wished to share her happiness with everyone in the world. Ni Chengui said with a smile, "These clothes are really beautiful. Not only is your daughter Yang a good cook, she also has a great taste in clothes." Ni Tsuehua reproached, "All she knows is to spend money." Ni Chengui patted Ni Kuihua's back. "With such a sensible daughter, all you have to do is hide under the covers and smile." Hearing this, Ni Tsuehua squinted her eyes in amusement. Yes, in her lifetime, having Ni Yang as her daughter was indeed a blessing. If it weren't for Ni Yang, she would still be struggling in Dam Village. The next day, Ni Yang was back at her stall selling noodles as usual. Unlike other days, there wasn't a long queue in front of the stall today. Only a few scattered people, including Li Gongcheng, were standing there. "Xiaoni, you're here." Upon seeing Ni Yang coming, Li Gongcheng greeted her with a smile. "Good morning, Mr. Li." Ni Yang bowed slightly. "Good morning," Li Gongcheng continued. "Oh, by the way, Xiaoni, there's something I want to discuss with you," Ni Yang said while tending to the stove. "Please say, Mr. Li." After yesterday's incident, Li Gongcheng had completely dispelled his immature thoughts about Ni Yang. He deeply understood that this young girl was not an average person, and not someone a small-timer like him could trifle with. Li Gongcheng was mentally preparing how to tactfully explain his intention to Ni Yang. "Well, our family's elderly lady really enjoys your noodles, but as the elderly need a more balanced diet, could you bring some appropriate food for her every morning?" After saying this, Li Gongcheng continued, "We can negotiate the price, as long as she likes it." And Aiyang thought for a moment, then said, "Okay, they'll give it a try. It's too late for today, come earlier tomorrow to collect it." Li Gongcheng was surprised that Aiyang agreed so quickly. "Doesn't that mean, Xiaoni, you agree?" It was just yesterday that she refused to be a cook even when Mr. Song offered her a high salary. Why did she agree so quickly today? Li Gongcheng thought that Aiyang was going to negotiate some conditions with him. Aiyang nodded. "Well, they'll give it a try, but I'm not sure if your elderly lady will like what I make. It's absurd to refuse a chance to make money. After all, making a dish isn't that difficult. Moreover, it's different from a regular 9-to-5 job." "Sounds good." Li Gongcheng handed Aiyang a large union. "Hey, race the deposit. So it's settled then, Xiaoni. They'll come and collect it tomorrow morning. If the elderly lady likes it, Mr. Song said he'll pay you 100 yuan each month. The main point is to let the elderly lady eat well." "Fine." Aiyang nodded slightly. Li Gongcheng continued, "Now, can you make 3 bowls of noodles as usual?" After saying this, Li Gongcheng suddenly realized something was strange and asked, "Did I come too early? Why isn't anyone queuing today?" Aiyang was also puzzled. Just then, a middle-aged woman who came for noodles arrived. "Boss, make me a bowl of noodles." "Okay," Aiyang replied. After Aiyang responded, the middle-aged woman said, "Boss, can the noodles be cheaper? The pickle fish noodles over there are only 2.5 yuan a bowl, while yours are 3 yuan. Chapter 68. Is she playing hard to get? _1 Aiyang had known all along that after her sour fish noodle soup became popular, imitators would appear. However, she didn't expect them to turn up so quickly. She was watching the middle-aged woman trying to haggle. With a smile, Aiyang said, "I'm sorry, comrade. This is a small business. I can't lower the price any further." The imitator's pickled fish noodles had just come out and it was also 5 cents cheaper per bowl. Naturally, everyone would choose the newcomer, seeking novelty and cheaper prices. The appearance of the imitator had its pros and cons for Aiyang. The advantage was that the quality difference would be highlighted only in comparison. Aiyang was now using a secret recipe for the pickles and the chili. The imitator could never replicate the exact same taste. Aiyang was still full of confidence in her own skills. The disadvantage was that they had taken over most of her business this morning. Hearing this, the middle-aged woman found a place to sit down and continued, "If the queue wasn't so long over there, I would have eaten there. Make me a bowl first." Aiyang smiled and said, "All right, please wait a moment." Li Gongcheng was looking at Aiyang, thinking that this girl was getting more and more interesting. Even when her business was being taken away, she was still so calm and collected. Wasn't she worried at all? Though she was just a teenager, she was doing work that many adults couldn't handle. Aiyang served up the boiled noodles. At this time, a few more customers came to eat noodles. "Little boss, 3 bowls of noodles. Please add extra chili and cilantro. No vinegar." "All right, please wait a moment." Aiyang replied with a smile. Although there weren't as many customers lined up as before, the 5 small tables were never left empty. The customers kept coming and going. After all, quality was something that couldn't be overlooked, and Aiyang still had many loyal old customers. Aiyang was constantly busy in front of her stall. She was wearing a light blue shirt on the top and black wide-legged pants on the bottom. Although her clothes looked rustic, she was elegantly radiating a classical beauty. Light blue is a very picky color and it won't look good on people with slightly dark skin. Worn poorly, it could even create a reverse effect. Usually, colors complement people, but in Aiyang's case, it was the person who complemented the color. The light blue seemed to be born specifically for her, making her already fair skin even more nearly translucent. The rising steam blurred her face, rendering her jade-like features vague and elusive, which added to her mysterious beauty, as though she were in a fairyland. A black car was parked not far away, and the man sitting in the car had thin lips tightly pressed, silently watching the scene. He was holding a file in his hand, and his cold face was almost expressionless. After a while, he lightly opened his thin lips and spoke in a low voice. How long has she been setting up a stall here? It's been over a month. The driver Xiao Zhao respectfully answered. Over a month? Mo Baichuan slightly narrowed his eyes and continued asking, has she been setting up a stall and selling noodles for this whole month? The driver Xiao Zhao nodded. Yes. After he spoke, he added, according to my investigation, business seems to be quite good. People are lining up every morning. Just don't know what happened this morning. Saying this, Xiao Zhao strangely scratched his head. Listening to this, Mo Baichuan didn't say anything. He furrowed his brows tightly, his eyes pitch black, deep as the sea. He prided himself on being adept at reading people, but he just couldn't figure out this N.I. Yang. According to the investigation, N.I. Yang was never married. Instead, she escaped from Dam Village with her wit and arrived at Beijing. So, did she choose Beijing because of him? From the first time they met to the second time and then the third time, was it all part of her plan? The fact that she could make herself comfortable in Beijing implied that she was certainly not an ordinary person. Mo Baichuan's gaze deepened. By the way, Master, I also found out that Master Song seems quite interested in her too, Xiao Zhao added. Speak. Mo Baichuan pulled a pack of cigarettes from his pocket. After lighting one up and holding it at the corner of his mouth, the thin lips lightly clasping the cigarette, his exhale and inhale was inexplicably sexy. What on earth made Song Beiqing interested in her? The little girl was young, but she was quite capable. Mo Baichuan slowly exhaled a beautiful smoke ring. Xiao Zhao carefully chose his words, then continued, the noodle dish that the old lady recently enjoys the most is bought from N.I. Yang. Is it her? Mo Baichuan was taken aback, a flash of doubt in his eyes. Xiao Zhao nodded. Moreover, Master Song tried everything he could to employ N.I. Yang at a high salary, but he didn't succeed. I heard from Xiaoli that he even raised the monthly salary to over 50,000. He even let N.I. Yang name a price, but none of these moved her. This is interesting. A monthly salary of over 50,000. What does this signify? It signifies instant wealth. Generally speaking, no one can resist such magnificent wealth. N.I. Yang must be selling noodles for the money. So why would she refuse Song Beiqing? Why refuse this enormous wealth? Unless she has set her sights even higher. Isn't there a saying? The most beautiful things often carry deadly poison. Mo Baichuan narrowed his eyes, which were as black and deep as a phoenix's. After a moment, he gently moved his gaze from N.I. Yang and said, let's go. Well, go back. After all, N.I. Yang is just a woman. No matter how she tried, she couldn't move his mountain. Moreover, Song Beiqing is not a fool. He's experienced in the world of romance. If N.I. Yang targeted him, she would only end up empty-handed, losing both her body and heart. However, Mo Baichuan was looking forward to seeing what N.I. Yang would do next. For now, he just needs to wait and watch. When the time is right, he will personally strip away her beautiful facade. The car sped fast, raising a cloud of dust. Mo family. 2 elderly women with white hair were sitting in Mo Hudi's room. One was the old lady Mo. The other one was old lady Mo's old friend, old lady Zhang from the Zhang family. The 2 elderly women looked at Mo Hudi lying in bed, their eyes filled with heartache and sadness. Poor Mo Hudi, such a small child, suffered from illness every day, and she had already become a bag of bones. Old lady Zhang asked in a low voice, Erwin, you mentioned earlier that there's a famous doctor in Jiangnan who might be able to cure Xiaodai's illness. How's it going? Has the doctor come to see her? Hearing this, old lady Mo sighed. The famous doctor is too arrogant, refusing to treat anyone from the Mo or Yang families. I've already asked a friend to help. We should have news soon. The friend that Lady Mo mentioned was Li Xianxian. Li Xianxian also promised her that she would definitely convince the divine doctor from Jiangnan. Now, all of old lady Mo's hope was on this rumored divine doctor. Hearing this, old lady Zhang nodded. At that moment, Mo Hudi slowly woke up on the bed. The first thing she said after opening her eyes was, Grandma, did Guobao come to see me these days? Chapter 69 Filial Piety. The daughter who was lost for 33 years because of her long-term illness, Mo Hudi only had one good friend, Yang Guobao. Furthermore, no parent would wish for their child to hang around with a sickly kid. What if their child caught whatever she had? Previously, Yang Guobao would come to see her every few days. But now, if her memory served her, Yang Guobao hadn't come to see her in more than a month. Could it be that Yang Guobao had already? At this thought, Mo Hudi's expression darkened. Grandma Mo continued, "Didn't I tell you? Guobao was taken to the countryside by his mother, and he hasn't returned yet. Will Guobao come back?" Mo Hudi asked again. This question was a bit difficult for Grandma Mo to answer. Yang Guobao had been taken away by Wang Meifeng for over a month now, and they had not received any news. Who could be sure about the situation? Old Lady Zhang interjected. Haven't the Yang family thought of bringing back Wang Meifeng and her son? If the daughter-in-law was wrong, that was her problem, but their grandson was still their descendant. Would they just leave him stranded without a care? Grandma Mo said. Gobeo's grandma is also very stubborn. She's still waiting for Wang Meifeng to admit her mistake. If Wang Meifeng doesn't acknowledge it, the Yangs won't actively bring them back. After saying this, Grandma Mo continued. But this is really Wang Meifeng's fault. She's a college student, yet she was tricked by a teenager. Isn't it laughable? Old Lady Zheng pondered. Maybe that young girl has got some skills? Grandma Mo replied. Old sister, we've lived for so many years. Have you seen a teenaged divine doctor? Especially a female one? No need to mention several. Even one she had not seen. Moreover, all the historical divine doctors in China were men. When did a little girl become one? Old Lady Zheng laughed. You're right. The two old sisters chatted casually for a while. Mo Hudi lay in her bed, listening. After a while, she fell asleep. Old Lady Zhang held Mo Hudi's hand, her expression difficult to decipher. After a while, she muttered, if one hadn't lost Tingting back then, perhaps her child would be as old as Xiaodai by now. It's all my fault. I'm useless. Her voice was filled with sadness and regret. Just then, a figure rushed past the door. The figure didn't go far but hid in a corner, listening to the conversation inside. Hearing this, Grandma Mo sighed, comforting. Aching, it's not your fault about what happened back then. Don't be too hard on yourself. Now you have Lingling, don't you? Lingling is sensible and filial, and she gave you an outstanding granddaughter. It's as if they were your own. Old Lady Zhang croaked. But Tingting is my daughter, who I carried for 9 months and gave birth to. She was only 3 when she went missing. If she's still alive, she'd be 36 this year. If one weren't so useless as a mother, she could have enjoyed a happy life. But now, I don't even know whether she's alive. Even though Old Lady Zhang had adopted a girl who had children of her own, she couldn't help but miss her biological daughter. After all, she was her own child she carried for 9 months. How could she just forget? Don't worry, Aching. Grandma Mo patted Old Lady Zhang's hand, comforting. Tingting was a blessed child. She must be living well now. Maybe it won't be long before you can reunite. Mrs. Zhang was choked up with emotion, her voice barely a whisper. 33 years had passed, and she had never stopped searching for her daughter, but there had been no sign of her to this day. In her heart, Mrs. Zhang had a feeling about what might have happened, but she was unwilling to accept the reality. Mrs. Mo watched Mrs. Zhang, who was drowning in sorrow, without knowing how to comfort her. Only someone who has lost a daughter can truly understand this pain. At this moment, they heard slight footsteps at the door. Then came a knock. Mrs. Zhang quickly wiped the tears from her face. Come in, said Mrs. Mo. A girl of about 17-18 walked in with a tray. Grandma Mo. Mrs. Mo looked up, her face brightening. Xianjing has come. Xianjing. Seeing Zhang Xianjing, a smile crept onto Mrs. Zhang's face. Even though Xianjing was the child of her adopted daughter Zhang Lingling, Mr. and Mrs. Zhang loved their granddaughter dearly and indulged her in every way. They had even discussed that if they couldn't ever find their biological daughter, they would leave all their legacy to Zhang Xianjing once they passed away. Even if they did find their biological daughter in the future, she would still give half the inheritance to Zhang Xianjing. Moreover, Zhang Xianjing was an excellent student. At only 18, she had already been admitted to a prestigious university and was studying finance and management. Grandma Mo, borrowed your kitchen for a bit and made some mung bean soup. This is your bowl and this is for my grandma. As Xianjing spoke, she handed over the bowls of mung bean soup with both hands to the two elderly women. Mrs. Mo joked, Xianjing, you divided these so clearly. One hope you didn't put something extra in your grandma's bowl to make it taste better than mine? Xianjing, taken aback, replied, my grandma has a bit of a headache, so I added a little bit of herbal medicine to her mung bean soup. On hearing this, Mrs. Mo was surprised and said, Xianjing, did you prepare these two bowls of mung bean soup separately? Zhang Xianjing nodded. Xianjing, you really are so considerate. Mrs. Mo took Xianjing's hand, nodding in agreement. Your grandma is so lucky to have a respectful and caring granddaughter like you in this life. Making two separate bowls of mung bean soup might seem like a small thing, but the thoughtfulness involved was exceptional. The preparation itself was straightforward, but making them separately would have been quite bothersome. Many biological grandchildren perhaps wouldn't have the patience for such a lavish display of affection. Respectful and caring? On hearing this, a scoffing smile flickered in Xianjing's eyes. She was indeed very affectionate, but all her affection had gone to the dogs. She treated Mrs. Zhang so well, but Mrs. Zhang was still hung up on her biological daughter, who had probably been dead for centuries now. Naturally, blood is thicker than water. How could she, a granddaughter born out of an adopted daughter, ever compare to a biological child? A mocking smile crossed Zhang Xianjing's heart, but she didn't let it show as she modestly said, Grandma Mo, I'm not as good as you say 1 a.m. This is just what any granddaughter should do. Mrs. Zhang looked at her excellent and understanding granddaughter and said, Xianjing is just like her mother, always respectful and loving ever since she was a child. Upon hearing this, Mrs. Mo nodded in agreement. Indeed, Lingling is also a respectful child. Our Xianjing takes after her mother. Feeling slightly embarrassed, Xianjing said, Oh, grandmas, you're teasing me again. Please try the mung bean soup. It's refreshing and helps drive out the heat in the summer, and also helps detoxify. Chapter 70. It's not easy for us to have a good life. _1 The taste of the mung bean soup was mediocre. Nevertheless, out of respect for Zhang Xianjing's effort, the two elders gulped down the soup in one go. Grandma, let me wipe your mouth. Zhang Xianjing handed over a clean handkerchief in a timely manner. Elder Lady Mo teased from the side. Indeed, a biological grandmother is a biological grandmother. Look at her, handing bowls and offering handkerchiefs. Me, a stranger, cannot enjoy such a privilege. Biological grandmother? There was a cold sneer in Zhang Xianjing's heart. Elder Lady Zhang never treated her as a biological granddaughter. This appellation was truly ironic. Zhang Xianjing remarked with a smile, Granny Mo, once Xiaodai is better, she will definitely be even more filial than me. Of course, Elder Lady Mo liked hearing this comment. She also firmly believed that Mo Hudi would definitely recover. It had to be said, Zhang Xianjing was indeed a pleasing person. She knew how to win the favor of the elderly. In fact, since the day her mother had informed her that she and Elder Lady Zhang did not share any blood relation, she had started being cautious, afraid of offending these two elders with her words or actions. Therefore, her obedient and considerate behavior over these years was all a facade. Because she had to please these two elders of the Zhang family, only then would she have the chance to inherit everything from the Zhang family. However, today, upon hearing Elder Lady Zhang's words, she felt an unprecedented threat. From Elder Lady Zhang's words, it was not difficult to deduce that all these years they had been searching for that lost biological daughter. It was just that they had never found her. But what if one day they did find her? What would their family do then? Therefore, she must find a way to make the elderly couple of the Zhang family draft their will sooner than later. Otherwise, she would never be able to rest easy. All that the Zhang family owned was hers. Why should she have to give it all away? Thinking of this, A faint light flashed in Zhang Xianjing's eyes. At this moment, the door was pushed open once again. A kind-faced, middle-aged woman walked in from outside the door. "Mom, Auntie Mo. Lingling is here," Elder Lady Mo greeted with a broad smile. The person who came was none other than Elder Lady Zhang's adopted daughter, Zhang Lingling. As soon as Zhang Lingling arrived, she stood behind Elder Lady Zhang, massaging her shoulders. Elder Lady Mo praised her nonstop, saying how filial Zhang Lingling was. Zhang Xianjing continued, "My mom is massaging Grandma. Grandma Mo, let me massage you. I have recently learned a new massage technique." As Zhang Xianjing spoke, she began to massage Elder Lady Mo. Elder Lady Mo was so pleased that her mouth curled up in a smile. This mother-daughter duo massaged the elders quietly, not disturbing their conversation. Elder Lady Mo, under Zhang Xianjing's massage, blissfully closed her eyes. As if suddenly reminded of something, Elder Lady Zhang asked, "Erwin, how has your sixth child been lately?" At these words, a glint of light flashed across Zhang Xianjing's usually tranquil gaze. Elder Lady Mo closed her eyes and said disappointedly, "Still the same, entirely useless." Elder Lady Zhang let out a sigh. "All your children are so talented. It's just the sixth one who has turned out to be utterly good for nothing?" Elder Lady Mo had a total of 6 children, 5 sons and 1 daughter. The sixth one mentioned by Elder Lady Zhang was Elder Lady Mo's youngest son, and also the son causing her the most worry. Each of the other 5 children of the Mo family, including grandson Mo Baichuan, were influential figures in Beijing. This sixth child, he is the least impressive of the Mo family. Well, he never went to college, never held a job. Even now, he's still an idle drifter. He basically just eats and waits for death, wandering around, often not returning home for several months, even a year. Because of this, he's become a joke among the aristocratic circles in Beijing. Ugh! Don't even mention him, Lady Mo sighed irritably. That boy is such a headache. Lady Zhang patted Lady Mo's hand, consoling her. Don't worry too much about it. Everyone grows and develops at their own pace. Forget it, muttered Lady Mo scornfully. I've given up on hoping he'll make anything of himself in my lifetime. Mrs. Zhang glanced at her daughter's expressions quietly. She has been observing for a while now. Each time they mentioned this disrespectful sixth child of the Mo family, her daughter, Zhang Xianjing, seems a bit off. Although this good-for-nothing sixth child of Mo family doesn't possess much talent, he is indeed blessed with good looks. It couldn't be her daughter has taken a liking to the worthless sixth of Mo family? Zhang Lingling faintly felt worried. Her daughter should aim to marry someone of Song Biqing's or Mo Baichuan status, not end up with the incompetent sixth of Mo family. No way. She had to banish this absurd idea from her daughter's mind immediately. Therefore, during lunch, Zhang Lingling finally found a chance to talk to her daughter privately. Xianjing. Zhang Lingling called out to Zhang Xianjing. What's the matter, Mom? Zhang Xianjing turned back. With a hushed voice, Zhang Lingling asked, Your mom wants to know, have you fallen for the sixth of Mo family? Zhang Xianjing replied a bit awkwardly. No. Zhang Lingling narrowed her eyes. Xianjing, you're my daughter. I can tell what you're thinking. Listen to me, you must quit this absurd idea right now. If you have time, put in more efforts towards Song Beichang or Mo Baichuan. Either one of them would be 1,000 times better than that sixth of Mo family. Finishing her words, Zhang Lingling continued sincerely, Xianjing, your mother struggled to make a life like this. I hope you can always stay on top of the world. That sixth of Mo family, all he knows is to ask for money from his family. What can he possibly provide you? Zhang Xianjing obediently nodded her head. Okay, Mom, one understand. Of course, she wants to stay on top. In fact, she wants to be at the very top. It's just that there are certain things she doesn't feel comfortable discussing with her mother. Just when Zhang Lingling was about to say something else, Zhang Xianjing preempted her. Oh, Mom, I heard something today. What was it? Zhang Lingling quickly asked. Zhang Xianjing continued. I heard that old woman has been secretly looking for her biological daughter for years. I'm worried? Zhang Lingling frowned severely. Those two troublemakers, I've been nothing but good to them, and they still treat us as outsiders. Xianjing, don't worry. As long as your mom's here, one won't let anyone take anything that belongs to us. With her mother's very promise, Zhang Xianjing felt relieved. Over on Yurtist Road's morning market. Probably because the market was not bustling today, and Aiyang only managed to sell all of her 500 bowls of noodles around noon. After cleaning up her stall, she rode her bicycle to the vegetable market. On the way, she conveniently passed by the newly opened sour fish stall. It was approaching lunchtime. Not only was the place filled with noodle eaters, but there was also a long queue forming. But what surprised her more was the owner of this stall. The person wasn't someone else. It was Zhu Yonghong's mother, Sun Chuanxiang, who was arrested a month ago. With Zhu Yonghong still in jail, Sun Chuanxiang had a middle-aged man helping her who bore a look similar to Zhu Yonghong. She assumed that this man was Zhu Yonghong's father. What an interesting family. The daughter hires thugs to destroy the competition, while the parents directly turn into copiers. When she noticed that Aiyang passed by this place, Sun Chuanxiang kept her head high and called out with a triumph in her voice. Come on everybody, delicious pickled fish noodles, just 0.25 yuan a bowl. Only 0.25 yuan a bowl. Chapter 71 Encounter Again. First subscription. 10,000 words chapter. Seeking support. Sun Chuanxiang was deliberately flaunting in front of Aiyang. Isn't it just a bowl of pickled fish noodles? Who can't make that? Aiyang is just a lowly wench. Previously, not only did she steal their business, she even caused her daughter to get arrested. It didn't matter that Zhu Yonghong was taken in. What mattered was it affected her son who was in college. Now, her son has been forced to suspend school and is under investigation at home. She had no idea when her son could return to campus. Their family had been farmers for 3 generations, never producing anyone successful. They finally had a golden phoenix, only to be ruined by Aiyang. That wench. If it weren't for Aiyang, would such a disaster have happened? For a moment, Sun Chuanxiang wished she could bite Aiyang to death. However, she has now taken her revenge, successfully taking away all of Aiyang's customers. It was obvious that Aiyang hadn't sold a single bowl of noodles this morning. Aiyang can still smile now, but she's probably going to cry tomorrow morning. Cheap hussy. Serves you right. Thinking about it, Sun Chuanxiang became even more self-satisfied. Aiyang appeared unaffected, ignoring Sun Chuanxiang. It wasn't pride, but rather that the taste of Sun Chunxiang's pickled fish stank. Even if sold cheaply, it wouldn't keep many customers except for a few bargain hunters. Those who truly care about taste won't be returning customers. After all, whether it's the pickling of the fish, the chili, or even the sour vegetable in Aiyang's pickled fish noodles, there's a secret recipe involved. Sun Chuanxiang was simply running out of tricks. Why should she lower herself to the same level as such people? As it turns out, she should really be thanking Sun Chuanxiang. After all, only the inferior can highlight the superior. Isn't there an old saying? Often imitated, never surpassed. Aiyang arrived at the vegetable market, bought some vegetables, meat, fruits, and about a dozen fish, tied them all on the bike, and just as she was about to ride back, she saw some trendy young men and women, each holding a can of Jianlibo energy drink. Jianlibo is a kind of soft drink unique to this era. Soft drink? Aiyang thought for a moment and suddenly had an idea. At this time, a bottle of Jianlibo was quite expensive and most families couldn't afford it. However, an iced Jianlibo did have a great effect on beating the heat. Now it was summer. Many customers would be sweating and wanting to quench their thirst after eating halfway through a bowl of pickled fish noodles. Customers who spend 30 cents for a bowl of noodles certainly won't spend over 1 yuan for Jianlibo or Debaisher fruit-flavored carbonated drinks to quench their thirst. So, she could use other beverages instead of a carbonated drink. As long as it tastes good, sells at a cheap price, and matches well with pickled vegetable noodles, it will surely sell well. Aiyang's eyes narrowed, a glint of light sparkling beneath them, as she immediately turned her bike around and headed the other way. On the way, she passed Li Dongliang's shop. Li Wei was away at school. The people in the shop today were Li Dongliang and his wife, Qian Jinfeng. The couple was chatting about something at the shop's entrance. Seeing An Yang riding over, Li Dongliang greeted her with a smile. Yang, how come you're back again? He noticed some fresh grass carp hanging on the back of An Yang's bike. Could it be that this girl's business was really that good? That doesn't seem right. A young girl like her, how can she possibly cook something delicious? Moreover, it's fish, something everyone dislikes. Perhaps she was just making it seem like her business was good to avoid being made fun of. But why? What's the purpose of her doing this? Li Dongliang narrowed his eyes as his gaze swept over An Yang's face. Although An Yang was illiterate and quite plainly dressed, there was no denying that her face was truly striking. He had seen many people while doing business every day, but he had never seen anyone as beautiful as An Yang. Could it be? Li Dongliang suddenly thought of his son, Li Wei. His son was quite good-looking, and not only was he a high school student, he would be a college student in the future. His future was limitless. Li Dongliang realized it all of a sudden. An Yang's ambitions were indeed high, daring to set her sights on his son. Thinking about it, when Li Dongliang looked at An Yang, there was caution in his eyes. His son was so accomplished, he did not have to worry about finding a good wife in the future. Moreover, it said that marriages should be matched in social and economic status. Someone like An Yang trying to marry up was not suitable for his son at all. Chapter 72 Encounter Again, First Order, 10,000 Words Chapter, Ask for Support, _2. His son deserved a better girl, perhaps in the future. He could even marry a CEO's daughter. An Yan could not have imagined that Li Dongliang had such thoughts. She still replied with a heartful smile. Hello, Uncle and Auntie. I'm going to buy some stuff from the pharmacy. Going to the pharmacy? If she was really going to the pharmacy, why didn't she stop there on her way? Why is she coming back instead? She must be up to some shifty business. A touch of ridicule flashed in Li Dongliang's eyes. An Yan was cycling very fast, and in a blink of an eye she slipped past the couple. Qian Jinfeng curiously asked, Hey, is that young girl the An Yan you've mentioned before? She's quite polite, not at all like a girl from the countryside. People just arrived from the countryside are normally very shy, restrained, and humble. But Qian Jinfeng only saw confidence in An Yan's demeanor. And she was very beautiful. Even though it was just a passing glance, An Yan had already impressed Qian Jinfeng. Li Dongliang snorted. That little girl has big plans. Qian Jinfeng was taken aback. What do you mean? Li Dongliang then told Qian Jinfeng what he was thinking. After hearing it, Qian Jinfeng's face was full of astonishment. Li, I think your analysis makes sense. But don't worry, our Xiaowei is not that shallow. He's a sensible boy. Even if An Yan has a little trick up her sleeve, Xiaowei won't fall for her. Li Dongliang nodded his head. Qian Jinfeng sighed. I really didn't expect that young girl to be like this. What on earth was her parents' upbringing? Such a failure. Fortunately, our Xiaowei isn't like that. An Yan arrived at the pharmacy. She parked her bike at the entrance. It was the critical period of Western medicine's prevalence and the decline of traditional Chinese medicine, so there were no other customers in the traditional Chinese medicine store except the salesperson. The salesperson greeted enthusiastically when he saw someone entering. Hello, comrade. What can I help you with? An Yan smiled and replied, Could you please get me a kilo of dark plum, a kilo of hawthorn, a kilo of dried tangerine peel, a kilo of licorice, and a kilo of roselle flower? People usually purchase traditional Chinese medicine by grams. Yet this young girl requested kilos. The salesperson was stunned for a moment, then asked, Young comrade, are you sure you want a kilo of each item, instead of 10 grams? An Yan nodded. Yes, how much is it? They'll pay first. Wait a moment. Let me calculate. The salesperson picked up his abacus and started calculating. An Yan glanced at the price list on the wall, then said, 5 kilos of medicine should cost 2 yuan, 4 cents and 3 mils. After saying that, and Ai Yen took out the change from her pocket and placed it on the counter. 2 yuan, 4 cents, and 3 mils? Could this young girl calculate so accurately? She must be guessing, right? The salesperson continued to operate his abacus suspiciously without looking up at Ai Yen. However, a moment later, the salesperson was amazed at Ai Yen's ability to calculate to the penny accurately when he saw the result on his abacus. This young girl was indeed remarkable. She calculated the exact amount right down to the penny. The salesperson collected the money on the counter, weighed the medicine and handed it to Ai Yen, then asked curiously, "Young comrade, what do you need all this medicine for? Besides, these medicines can't cure diseases. They can only be used as adjuvants in usual practice." Ai Yen smiled and said, "Actually, it's not really medicine. I'm using it to make a drink." "These medicines can be used to make a drink?" The salesperson was surprised. Ai Yen nodded. After buying the main ingredients for sour plum soup, Ai Yen went to the store again to buy some rock sugar and dried osmanthus flowers. It wasn't until 2 o'clock in the afternoon that Ai Yen returned home. Ai Tsuehua had been waiting at the doorstep. Seeing Ai Yen cycling back, Ai Tsuehua immediately went to meet her. Yang, why are you so late today?" Ai Yen usually got home around 12 o'clock. Ai Tsuehua was so worried that Ai Yen could have met with some accidents. Ai Yen smiled mysteriously. "I bought some interesting things." "What interesting things?" Knowing her daughter's mischievous nature, Ai Tsuehua couldn't help but be a bit curious. Ai Yen continued to maintain her mystery. "You'll know tonight. By the way, where's Yun? Ai Tsuehua laughed. "Yun is sleeping. I've left you some food in the pot. You should go and eat first. They'll tidy up these things for you." Chapter 73 Encounter Again. First Order. 10,000 Words Chapter. Ask for Support. _3. Ai Yang was already hungry. "I will go to eat first then. Thank you for your hard work. Go ahead." Ai Tsuehua watched Ai Yang with a pleasant smile. The midday meal was good, 2 dishes and a soup. Stir-fried pork with green peppers, cold cucumber salad, and tomato and egg soup. After eating and drinking heartily, Ai Yang arrived at the kitchen. In the kitchen, Ai Tsuehua was already busy slicing fish and making fishbone soup. Ai Yang took out the 5 packets of medicinal herbs she had bought, then found a flat-bottomed pot, in which she put crystal sugar, dark plum, hawthorn, tangerine peel, and osmanthus flower according to proportion. Added plenty of water, first brought it to a boil on high heat, then simmered it on low heat. As soon as the water began to boil, a refreshing sweet and sour aroma wafted into the air, incredibly enticing. While slicing fish, Ai Tsuehua asked, Yang, is this the good stuff you were talking about?" Ai Yang nodded. "Yes, it's this." Ai Tsuehua continued to ask, "What is this?" Ai Yang lifted the lid off the flat-bottomed pot, only to see that the previously clear water had turned purple. "Mom, this is called sour plum soup. It can eliminate greasiness, invigorate the spleen, and stimulate the appetite. In fact, the effects of sour plum soup go far beyond these. It has the ability to dissipate qi and resolve stasis, generate saliva to quench thirst, consolidate lung energy, relieve anxiety, and calm the mind. Regular consumption can eliminate diseases and strengthen the body, making it a valuable health drink in hot summer." "Can we drink this?" Ai Tsuehua asked, sniffling at the seemingly good smell. "MHM." Ai Yang slowly nodded. "It's best to simmer the sour plum soup over low heat for 30 minutes. Then stew it for another 30 minutes to enhance the flavor." After turning off the heat, Ai Yang went back to the yard to marinate the pickles with the greens that Ai Tsuehua had washed and put into the pickling jar. Marinating pickles is quite time-consuming, so Ai Yang was busy until late in the afternoon to marinate all the vegetables. By this time, the sour plum soup had also finished stewing. Ai Yang poured the finished sour plum soup into the glass bottles she had bought a few days ago, then hung those bottles in the well to chill for a while. At dinner time, they could enjoy the sour and sweet sour plum soup. Ai Yang was very much looking forward to the finished sour plum soup. After finishing all the chores at home, and Yang said goodbye to Anai Tsuehua and walked towards the river with her bucket. She had set a fish trap in the river but hadn't checked it for 2 days, so there should be quite a lot of fish now. Along the way, Yang met quite a few enthusiastic villagers. After some time of getting to know each other, those who had originally had issues with Yang had changed their minds quite a bit. Firstly, because of the children's propaganda. Secondly, due to the fact that Yang was always smiling and greeting everyone kindly, regardless of who she met. Frankly, who doesn't like a beautiful and polite girl? Stop! At this moment, an arm suddenly appeared in front of Yang, blocking her path. Yang looked up slightly and saw the person standing in front of her was Wang Xiaohong, whom she hadn't seen for days. May I help you? Yang raised an eyebrow slightly. Wang Xiaohong looked at Yang, crossed her arms over her chest, and addressed her with an accomplished smile. Outlander, dare to come with me? What's the deal with this Wang Xiaohong? She couldn't beat her physically, nor could she outtalk her. Yet she insisted on making her presence felt in front of her from time to time, and Yang initially didn't want to bother with her. But then she thought that it would be annoying to have Wang Xiaohong prancing around her all the time, so she had to figure out a once and for all solution to save herself the annoyance of seeing Wang Xiaohong. Take the lead then, and Yang spoke calmly. Follow me. Wang Xiaohong turned around with a smile. Originally, she was wondering what she could do to make Yang obediently come with her. Surprisingly, Yang was so cooperative this time, it's like rushing to get herself killed. What a cheeky minx. Last time she dared to treat her like that, this time she'd show her who's boss. Wang Xiaohong directly led Yang to a dense forest. The forest was large, with towering trees blocking the strong sunlight, making it shady and a bit chilly inside. Here and there you could see a lonely tomb, making one feel creepy even in the hot summer. Mandatory cremation wasn't in effect at this time. When people died, they were generally buried on hillsides or in forests. Not far ahead, at the edge of a gravesite, 5 or 6 reckless teens gathered together. Seeing Wang Xiaohong walking over with Yang, one of them quickly threw away his cigarette, instantly becoming alert. They're here. They're here. Upon hearing this, the others also turned their attention to Wang Xiaohong and Yang, their eyes radiating hostility. Chapter 74 Encounter Again. First subscription. 10,000 words chapter. Seeking support. _4. They gazed at the young girl approaching them, their eyes filled with astonishment. They had always thought that Wang Xiaohong was pretty enough, but this girl cornered the market. Wang Xiaohong paled in comparison. It was no surprise that Wang Xiaohong was jealous and resentful towards her. A woman's jealousy can indeed be terrifying. Brotherly. Seeing these people, Wang Xiaohong stepped forward with a beaming smile and took the initiative to wrap her arm around one of the men. Why are you so late? The man referred to as Brother Li leaned down to give Wang Xiaohong a kiss on the cheek. At this time, public displays of affection were strictly prohibited, and anyone witnessing Wang Xiaohong and Brother Li's intimate exchange would no doubt report them for lewd behavior. But this was in the countryside in an isolated small grove. Who cared about such triviality? Wang Xiaohong gave a giggle, then shot Yang a glance and pleaded sweetly. Brother Li, it's her. She bullied me last time. Yang slightly raised her eyebrows. She had been wondering how Wang Xiaohong suddenly grew so brave, considering she typically avoided her. Evidently, Wang Xiaohong had found herself a protector. You're Yang, right? Brother Li lit a cigarette, his eyes glinting maliciously. Yang nodded gently, replying softly, Yes, that's me. Her demeanor was relaxed, even carrying a hint of a smile. There was a touch of unruliness, and the overwhelming cold elegance in her eyes made it clear she didn't consider these people a threat. Wang Xiaohong leaned comfortably against Brother Li's chest. Her face lit up with a triumphant smile. Brother Li, last time she bullied me so much. This time you must help me get justice. When she finished speaking, Wang Xiaohong glared at Yang with a malicious glow in her eyes. The grove was surrounded by farmland on all sides, rarely visited by outsiders. If anything were to happen here today, and Ai Yang would have no one to call for help. Upon hearing Wang Xiahong's words, and Ai Yang smiled. Using your body to seek revenge on me, Wang Xiaohong, that's all you are capable of. You! Wang Xiaohong clenched her teeth, her hands repeatedly clenching and unclenching. The anger on her face faded, replaced by feigned embarrassment. She looked up at Brother Li and whined, Brother Li, look at her! Even in your presence, she still dares to act so brazenly. Brother Li glanced at his sidekicks and they immediately understood, swiftly moving forward to surround Ai Yang. The 5 men towered over Ai Yang, who was petite and alone among them, creating an air of helplessness. Wang Xiaohong watched Ai Yang, her eyes sparkling with satisfaction. With these 5 men here, Ai Yang would be torn apart even if she didn't die. After today, Ai Yang wouldn't have the face to stay in Jinghua village anymore. Did Ai Yang think herself too high and mighty? Today, Wang Xiaohong planned to trample that arrogance underfoot and let Ai Yang taste the humiliations she had suffered. This thought was immensely pleasing to Wang Xiaohong, and she couldn't help but smirk. Little sister, you're quite attractive. One of the minions smirked sleazily as he reached out to touch Ai Yang's chin with his coarse hand. Ai Yang stood in the middle of the 5 men, a ray of sunlight shining through the gaps of the leaves onto her skin, making her appear even more coldly beautiful. So beautiful, yet touched with a glacial coldness. Looking at Ai Yang, Wang Xiaohong scoffed. What was Ai Yang trying to pull, acting so arrogant at a time like this? Just wait, she wouldn't be able to keep it up for much longer. Just as the minion's hand was poised to touch Ai Yang, she reached up and grabbed his descending wrist. With a sudden crack, the sound of bones shattering filled the air, followed by a cry of agony. The once boastful ruffian was now clutching his broken hand, his face twisted in pain as he curled up on the ground. No one knew how much force Ai Yang used, but his hand was useless now. The remaining thugs retreated a step, shocked by the spectacle. However, they quickly regained their senses, looked at each other, and lunged at Ai Yang, clearly intending to fight for real this time. Wang Xiaohong watched in wide-eyed shock, her heart pounding in her throat. No matter how good Ai Yang was at fighting, she couldn't possibly take on 4 men. What had just happened was an anomaly. Chapter 75 Encounter Again. First subscription. 10,000 words chapter. Seeking support. _5. Ai Yang just stood there, her left hand squeezing her right, and her right pinching her left, the knuckles making cracking sounds. Facing the 4 individuals rushing towards her, her face didn't reveal even a hint of nervousness. She kicked out with a neat backspin kick, then sprung into the air, her toes landing on a thick tree trunk for leverage. Finally her toes rotated, landing squarely on the backs of the gangsters. The scene was thrilling, just like in an action film. Bam, bam, bam. All 4 thugs were knocked to the ground, with one of them tumbling directly onto Wang Xiaohong and another man. The 2 of them failed to dodge in time, ending up falling to the ground as well. Wang Xiahong's painful groan echoed in the air. Who gave you the guts to mess with me? Ai Yang demanded, stepping on the other man's hand. The man's voice trembled as he glanced towards Wang Xiaohong. It was her. It was Wang Xiaohong. We had nothing to do with this. Although Ai Yang was exceptionally beautiful at that moment, she seemed like a devil to him, a devil that had crawled out of hell. Wang Xiaohong bit her lip tightly, sweat beading on her forehead, her eyes filled with defiance. This useless jerk. He was so vigorous in bed. How come he can't even beat a woman now? And it was 5 against 1 at that. What now? Instead of humiliating Ai Yang, they ended up humiliating themselves. Ai Yang towered over Wang Xiaohong, extending a slender finger to lift her chin, forcing Wang Xiaohong to meet her gaze. Her lips moved. Wang Xiaohong, what did one tell you last time? Ai Yang was clearly smiling, but Wang Xiaohong couldn't detect any warmth in her smile. Wang Xiaohong kept her lips tightly shut, refusing to say a word or beg for mercy. Ai Yang smiled sweetly, instantly lighting up everything around her. With a light tone, she said, "If you have forgotten, let me help you remember." As she finished speaking, She moved her hand to Wang Xiahong's neck and effortlessly lifted her off the ground. Wang Xiahong's toes began to inch off the ground. Her neck felt as if it was breaking. Her breathing became increasingly difficult due to the lack of oxygen. Her face turned red and strange sounds were coming from her throat. For the first time, Wang Xiahong felt incredibly close to death. It seemed she would perish in the next moment. Terror seized her. She didn't want to die. She was still so young. Her legs floundered in midair, her hands desperately grasping An Yang's wrist. Wang Xiahong was truly terrified. An Yang, all smiles, looked at Wang Xiahong calmly. "Do you wish to live or to die?" she asked gently. Wang Xiahong stared at An Yang with wide eyes, pleading evident in her gaze. From the strange sounds she was making, it could be vaguely made out that she was saying, "Live? I want to live." An Yang held Wang Xiahong in one hand effortlessly, standing tall like a queen looking down at all beings, invoking fear. The others were so scared they were shaking. Oh God, had they just messed with the king of hell? The other man sneakily glanced at An Yang, realizing that she was not paying him any attention. He quickly scrambled up and bolted away. Seeing their leader flee, the others cared not about anything else and followed suit, fleeing in abject terror. An Yang didn't bother chasing after them. She glanced at Wang Xiahong dangling from her hand and asked, "Will you still dare to mess with me next time?" At this point, Wang Xiahong could not utter a word, only shaking her head vigorously. She wanted to live. She would never dare to provoke An Yang again. If she could go back in time, she believed she would never allow such a foolish thing to happen. Seeing remorse plastered all over Wang Xiahong's face, An Yang finally released her grip. Thud! Wang Xiahong tumbled to the ground, bereft of strength. She was gasping for fresh air. The feeling of being alive was wonderful. The ability to breathe freely felt marvelous. At this point, the sun had started to set, and the woods echoed with the hooting of owls. The hoots of owls sounded like human laughter, strangely eerie, making one's hair stand on end, because some said that such sounds were the cries of ghosts. It was highly unpropitious in rural areas. However, An Yang was not intimidated by these sounds. She brushed her hands off, cast a glance at Wang Xiahong sprawled on the ground, and elegantly walked away from the woods, step by step. Chapter 76 Encounter Again. First subscription. 10,000 words chapter. Seeking support. _6. After An Yang left, Wang Xiahong was the only one remaining in the gloomy grove. The sun was setting. The grove grew steadily darker. Scarcely visible was the phosphorus fire spewing from the graves at the edge. Phosphorus fire is also known as ghost fire. As Wang Xiahong's vitality gradually recovered, the tranquility of the grove during the day was replaced by an incredibly horrific scene. Dreadful ghost cries, drifting ghost fire, dim light, and the intermittent graves all tormented Wang Xiahong's senses. Wang Xiahong is not An Yang. Even though she can be capricious and malicious, she is just a 17-year-old girl. She has never experienced such horrors before. At that moment, she was so terrified that her face turned pale. She tightly embraced her head, crying out, "Don't come near me. Don't come near me, Mom. Dad. Please come to save me." Regrettably, the only response in the grove were the ghastly ghost cries. An Yang arrived at the river bank, her face relaxed. She greeted passersby who were working in the field with a sweet and bright smile. Who could associate her with the demon-like person in the grove just a while ago? An Yang stood by the river bank, rolled up her trouser legs, revealing her fair-skinned leg. Her feet were beautiful, small, and exquisite. Her glossy and transparent nails were like rows of small seashells, faintly presenting a soft pink hue, delicate as a piece of art. A slim figure approached from across the river and saw such a scenario. The girl was partially rolling up her trousers, stepping into the river one step at a time. Every step she took was steady. The sunset was projecting on the river's surface, reflecting a golden sheen, forming a beautiful picture with her. Even with just her back view, it made one's imagination run wild. If she turned back and smiled at him now, what kind of ripple would it create? The man was taken by surprise and just stood there, nearly mesmerized. Isn't this the same girl he saw at the mall last time? Didn't expect to encounter her so soon again. Just then, it occurred to him, could she possibly be attempting suicide by jumping into the river? At that thought, the man's eyes narrowed. He unfastened his jacket, threw it on the ground, and dashed towards the river. When En-Ai-Yang was hoisted from behind, she was baffled as if pierced by an unexpected force, causing her to instinctively grab the collar of the man's white shirt. Simultaneously, a scent of men's cologne penetrated her nostrils, a refreshing and crisp fragrance. En-Ai-Yang looked up at the man. In her sight was a face with well-defined features, thin lips, sharp eyebrows and eyes. Although the cold and stern look was also filled with gentleness. He was quite handsome, and somewhat familiar. Somehow, upon seeing this face, En-Ai-Yang thought of Mo Baichuan, the hooligan. However, this face was obviously much more composed than Mo Baichuan's. En-Ai-Yang firmly grasped his collar, scolding, "What are you doing? Are you trying to play a pervert in broad daylight? Let me down." The man's expression was incredibly tense. He didn't speak a word. Clutching the person in his arms, he strode towards the shore. "Let me go!" En-Ai-Yang struggled incessantly. Alas, his arm was as if it were cast onto her. Regardless of how much she struggled, he remained unmoved. En-Ai-Yang was skilled. Even the robust Mo Baichuan was knocked down by her. She didn't expect to lose against a man today. En-Ai-Yang was furious. She reached out to pinch his neck, yelling, "Smelly rascal! Let go of me now!" But the man remained silent, carrying En-Ai-Yang with both fast and steady steps. When he glanced at the girl's angry face, he couldn't help but frown slightly. Such a pretty girl with a good figure, why would she want to take her own life? En-Ai-Yang, in fury and unable to struggle, bit onto his collarbone. Immediately, a mix of salty and sweet taste filled her mouth, while a trace of blood stained his white shirt. Yet the man had no intention of letting go, holding on to En-Ai-Yang until he reached the shore. Only then did he release her. But, to prevent her from jumping into the river again, he firmly restricted her wrist, saying sternly, "Are you crazy? Is that how you treat your savior? Let go of me." En-Ai-Yang jolted his hand away. "Are you sick? Who asked you to save me?" However, his hand seemed to be stuck to her wrist. She couldn't free herself. Chapter 77 Encounter Again. First subscription. 10,000 words chapter. Seeking support. _7. I won't let go. The man looked at her, adding, "Unless you promise me you won't try to kill yourself." En-Ai-Yang let out a deep breath, trying her best to calm down. "Who told you one was attempting suicide?" The man loosened his tie at the neck, speaking somberly. "Just now you were heading towards the river. If that's not attempting suicide, then what is? If I weren't there, you'd be an anonymous drowned corpse by now." He saved her, and she, for her part, had returned his favor with hostility. "Seeing that you are quite pretty, what could have possibly driven you to consider jumping into the river?" After all this time, it turned out he thought she was about to jump into the river. En-Ai-Yang looked up at the man, explaining, "One was just going to fetch a lobster trap from the river, not jumping in. We shouldn't be touching. Can you let go of me now?" The man still firmly held En-Ai-Yang's hand, skeptical. "Are you sure you weren't going to jump in?" En-Ai-Yang nodded earnestly. "Why would I want to end my life when I'm living just fine? Then swear on it." The man clearly didn't believe En-Ai-Yang's words. Left with no choice, En-Ai-Yang raised 3 fingers, sincerely saying, "One swear." Seeing En-Ai-Yang like this, the man reluctantly believed her. "Once I let you go, you'd better not lie to me." "Sure." En-Ai-Yang nodded slightly. The man loosely let go of her. En-Ai-Yang instantly pulled her hand back. Her skin was naturally fair and would turn red easily just by touching it. The man's firm squeeze just now had left 5 distinctive finger marks on her wrist, alarmingly red. The man also noticed the abnormality on her wrist, promptly apologizing. "I'm sorry, Is your wrist all right? It's fine. And Yang looked up slightly. You meant well. What Yang didn't expect was her gaze landed on the man's chest. A bright red bloodstain contrasted sharply on his white shirt, making a striking scene. Seeing this, Yang felt somewhat flustered. She seemingly acted too impulsively just now and had bitten too hard. The man seemed to see through her thoughts, casually saying, I'm fine. It's just a superficial wound and it doesn't hurt at all, a minor issue. I was too impulsive just now, otherwise this wouldn't have happened. In his words, the man fully demonstrated a man's grace, taking all the blame on himself. This rather embarrassed Yang because, after all, he was the one who got injured, and she was the one who bit him. None of this would have happened if she hadn't gotten overly emotional. Let me see how deep the wound is. Yang walked to his side and began to unfasten his metal buttons. Her slender fingers, white as jade, rapidly wound around his collar. Soon 3 buttons were undone. With them so close, he could see her exquisitely chiseled face if he just looked down. From his perspective, her long fan-like eyelashes flickered, their fluttering leaving a gentle trace of softness in his heart, stirring ripples. Next was her high-raised nose, lips as red as fiery flames, and skin as milky as cream. Even though her makeup wasn't applied, she was still bewitchingly beautiful. He was completely taut, not daring move an inch. Although he was a man in his late 20s, he felt as innocent in front of her as a boy at the brink of adolescence. Yang took a look. The wound seemed rather deep. This was a problem. Yang furrowed her brows slightly. There are over 1,000 kinds of bacteria in the human mouth. Being bitten by a human can cause infections, which can lead to serious consequences if not dealt with promptly. Could even put someone's life in danger. Go back with me. Yang lifted her eyes to look at the man, continuing. You need to disinfect this wound with iodine, or else it might get infected. Only then did the man react, fastening his buttons as he said, It's only a bite mark, you don't have to go to such trouble. It's no trouble, just a quick disinfection. Yang lifted her hand and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. A little disinfection for some peace of mind. If the man was to leave just like this, Yang would undoubtedly still be worried. Being a doctor, she understood the seriousness of the situation. Okay. The man nodded. As long as you don't find it bothersome. Sure. Yang nodded slightly. Please wait for me a moment. Chapter 78 Encounter Again. First subscription. 10,000 words chapter. Seeking support. _8 As she finished speaking, Yang turned and walked towards the river. Hey, what are you doing? Seeing her walk back into the river, the man was startled and grabbed her wrist. With a swift jerk, he pulled her into his embrace. His one hand gripped hers, while the other wrapped around her slim, soft waist. The feeling of her softness and warmth in his arms momentarily stunned him. He could clearly smell the unique, clean scent that emanated from her, like bamboo but not quite, mixed with the faint allure of orchids. It was intoxicating, much like the mesmerizing allure of a poppy flower. Yang quickly regained her senses, immediately backing away to a safe distance as she explained, I'm going to pick up the fishing trap. Don't misunderstand. All? The man coughed lightly. Well, I'll go with you. He acted as though Yang might fling herself into the river in the next second. He considered himself a righteous young man. Yang was about to refuse when the man was already a step ahead, walking forward. Left with no choice, Yang hurried after him. The fishing trap is over here. The man, born into privilege, had never seen a fishing trap. He exclaimed in surprise like a child, Wow! So many fish. Is this the fishing trap? Yang nodded. MHM. The man took the fishing trap from Yang's hands. Let me carry it. The trap appeared light when Yang was holding it, but once he took it, he realized how heavy it was. It was probably around 30 to 40 pounds. He was astounded by how much strength the delicate-looking girl possessed. No need. I can handle it. Yang caught up to the man. This man was being a bit too familiar. They had only met 10 minutes ago, yet it seemed as though Yang had known him for a long time. The man laughed. I'm a man after all. It's not right to have a weak and delicate girl like you do the heavy lifting. Noting the sincerity in his words, Yang found it hard to refuse and thanked him instead. No problem, the man said. Next time you come to retrieve the trap, bring your father with you. This kind of work is more suitable for men. Yang answered flatly, One don't have a father. Having a father like Mu Jinbao was no different from not having one at all. The man looked surprised, touching his nose apologetically. I'm sorry. One didn't know your father had already. So, that was why she could handle herself so well at such a young age. Necessity makes the man, indeed. For a moment, the man's expression was quite complex. Yang simply smiled lightly. It's okay. I don't mind. Again, the man was taken aback. He didn't understand how the girl could still muster a smile. It was obviously a very sad topic. And furthermore, they were talking about her father. Was it a case of laughter through tears? By the way, what's your name? Despite knowing that it may be rude to ask so suddenly, he couldn't help himself. It seemed a shame not to know the name of such a beautiful girl. For the first time, the man realized that he could be so reckless when faced with a pretty girl. But he wasn't usually like this. Yang, having already lived 2 lifetimes, was not as conservative in her thoughts. My name is Yang. And yours? The man replied, Imemo Chishan. Yang raised an eyebrow. River that receives all, which makes you deep. Mountain that hides all, which makes you vast. Nice name. A surprised glint passed through Emo Kishan's eyes. Many people would simply laugh off or superficially compliment his name. He didn't expect Yang to understand the meaning hidden behind his name. Emo Chishan smiled and said, A pearl rolling in the vast sea bears the moon's tears. A jade born in the warm sunlight of the blue field amidst smoke. Your name is quite nice too. Yang replied with a laugh. Thank you for the compliment. She wasn't modest at all. Emo Chishan arched an eyebrow. After collecting the fishing trap, Yang led Emo Chishan towards the Ni family's residence. Just then, 2 children suddenly popped out from the adjacent bush. Hello, Sister Yang. Upon looking up, Yang recognized them as Penghu and Gooden. She greeted them warmly. Hello there. After the greeting, Penghu and Gooden noticed Emo Chishan standing next to Yang and curiously asked, Sister Yang, who is this man? Just as Emo Chishan was about to formally introduce himself, Yang interrupted him with a cheerful smile. This is my cousin. His family name is Emo. You can call him Brother Emo. Emo Chishan looked at Yang in disbelief. WTF? When did he become her cousin? Chapter 79. Need to take a strong dose of medicine. Hello, Brother Emo. Penghu and Gooden said in unison. Hello to you both. Emo Chishan politely smiled at Gooden and Penghu. He thought to himself, well, no more explanation needed. He might as well be her brother for the time being. After bidding farewell to Penghu and Gooden, the 2 continued on their way. As they passed by a lotus pond, a child suddenly leaped out from the thick lotus leaves and stood between them. This sudden appearance of a child startled Emo Chishan. However, to Yang, everything seemed normal as not a single ripple of surprise showed in her eyes. Clearly, this was not the first time she had encountered such a situation. Xiaohua, the child, stuffed a lotus pod into Yang's hand. Sister Yang, I just picked this lotus pod. The seeds inside are very sweet. This is for you. Thank you, Xiaohua. Yang smiled and gently patted Xiaohua's head. Sister Yang, there's no need to be polite with me, Xiaohua replied, shyly tugging at her hair. Along the way, they probably encountered over a dozen children. Each child was incredibly polite when greeting Yang. Emo Chishan could feel that their etiquette was not just a superficial formality, but something genuine that flowed from the heart. Initially, Emo Chishan assumed that Yang, who typically appeared aloof, was equally non-social in her day-to-day interactions. However, he was surprised to discover her warm side. Bearing the approval and affection of a group of innocent children, and Ai Yang must possess a very approachable personality in her daily life. The only thing that rubbed Mo Chishan the wrong way was that Ai Yang introduced him as her cousin to every child they encountered. Who would want to be her brother? Ai Yang. Mo Chishan glanced down at her, obviously puzzled. Ai Yang looked up slightly, seemingly understanding the question in his eyes. She slowly opened her lips and whispered 6 words. Avoiding suspicion under suspicious circumstances. She did not want to become the entertainment and laughingstock for her relatives again. At this time, televisions were not yet common, and people filled their days with gossips and rumors. Little did they know such rumors could sometimes be deadly. Upon hearing her words, Mo Chishan lightly touched his chin and remained silent. It wasn't long before they arrived at the entrance of the Ai family's house. Here we are. This is my home, Ai Yang introduced. Mo Chishan nodded approvingly. Your house is quite large. As Ai Yang led Mo Chishan inside, Ai Tsuehua emerged from the house, holding a child. Yang Yang is back. Upon finishing her sentence, Ai Tsuehua noticed Mo Chishan beside Ai Yang and asked suspiciously, Yang Yang, who is he? In this era, relationships between men and women were not so open. Seeing a man had visited her home, vigilance filled Ai Tsuehua's eyes. A widow's home attracts much gossip. They must guard against it. Ai Yang then briefly explained the situation. She then said to Mo Chishan, Mr. Mo, this is my mother. After listening to Ai Yang, Ai Tsuehua finally felt relieved. She smiled and said, Mr. Mo, are you all right? Yang Yang was indeed a bit reckless this time. It's all right, Auntie, Mo Chishan said as he put down the bucket of fish in his hand. It's also my responsibility. You can just call me Xiaoma. Ai Tsuehua had a positive first impression of Mo Chishan. She instructed Ai Yang, Yang Yang, take Xiaoma and go disinfect his wounds immediately. The young man was well dressed, from his suit down to his leather shoes and wristwatch. He was clearly not any ordinary individual. Ai Yang then led Mo Chishan into her room. The culture of that era was very sensitive to a man and woman sharing a room. Nevertheless, Ai Yang had returned from the 21st century without these societal chains weighing her down and didn't pay it any mind. Mo Chishan, having experienced his fair share of the world, didn't fuss over this issue as well. He was, however, surprised by Ai Yang's open-mindedness. Seeing her last time at the mall, he had already known Ai Yang was no ordinary girl, but he didn't expect her to be even more extraordinary than had imagined. You can sit for a while, I'll go fetch the iodine and cotton swabs, Ai Yang said, pointing to a chair. All right. Mo Chishan sat down comfortably. It was his first time seeing such a modestly furnished boudoir. The room only had a bed, a wardrobe, 2 chairs, and a table. There wasn't even a decent dressing table. Despite its simplicity, the room was spotless and refreshing. Accustomed to seeing luxuriously decorated bedrooms, this humble room offered a unique charm, suffused with the faint scent of magnolia. Chapter 80. Need to take a strong dose of medicine _2. It smells delightful. Mo Chishan looked around, quickly spotting a magnolia tree outside the window bedecked with countless blossoms. The lovely scent was drifting in from there. Soon, Ai Yang brought over iodine and swabs. Just as Mo Chishan was about to stand up from the chair, Ai Yang seemed to anticipate his action and chuckled. You can stay seated. I'll handle the rest. All right. Mo Chishan felt an inexplicable warmth in his ears and nodded. Ai Yang knelt and unfastened his metal button, her actions gentle as she applied iodine to the heavy bite marks. Mo Chishan stiffened, not daring to move. He could clearly feel the warmth of her breath coating his chest. It was a strange feeling, ticklish. Soon enough, Ai Yang finished applying iodine and stood up. In a mild tone, she said, Mr. Mo, it's all done. Be careful not to get water on it when you're bathing in the next few days so you don't get an infection. If you have time, you should get it checked at the hospital. 111 cover the medical expenses. You can find me whenever you need. All right, I'll do that. As he stood up from the chair, Mo Chishan's throat bobbed twice, his voice clearly more hoarse than before. and Aiyang furrowed her brows slightly. Mr. Mo, is your throat bothering you? Mo Kishin's expression remained indifferent. He coughed lightly into his fist and replied, It's fine. I've just been sitting here for too long. And Aiyang, who hadn't been through many life experiences, didn't think too much about it. She continued, One have some herbal medicine here that soothes the throat. It's a little bitter. Would you like some? Pills? This was something that couldn't be fixed with medication. Mo Kishin shook his head slightly, his face betraying no emotion. Thank you, but no. It's getting late, one should go. All right. Seeing his refusal, and Aiyang didn't insist, then let me walk you out. Under the circumstances, it would be inappropriate to ask Mo Kishin to stay for dinner. Upon hearing this, Mo Kishin was somewhat disappointed. He had assumed that Aiyang would insist on him staying a little longer, perhaps even having dinner with her. He didn't expect that. Mo Kishin agreed reluctantly. It wasn't in his nature to mooch off of anyone. As he got to the door, Aiyang, as if suddenly remembering something, told Mo Kishin, Mr. Mo, wait here for me. Before he could react, Aiyang had already dashed back into the house. But she returned quickly, her hands now holding a greaseproof paper bag. She thrust the bag into Mo Kishin's hands. Mr. Mo, you must be hungry after all this. This is bread I made myself. Take it to stave off hunger. Mo Kishin had intended to decline, but upon hearing that she made it herself, he consented. All right, thank you. After a pause, Mo Kishin continued. We're friends now, so calling me Mr. Mo is rather formal. Besides, didn't you just introduce me to those kids as your brother? It's fitting as I'm a few years older than you. If you don't mind, you can call me brother. And Aiyang didn't hesitate and promptly said, All right, brother Mo. Mo Kishin smiled slightly. I'll get going then. You don't have to see me off. I'm quite familiar with this area. Sure. And Aiyang nodded. Be careful on your own. Mo Kishin waved at Aiyang. Go back. It's getting dark. Don't want to frighten you. And Aiyang waved back at Mo Kishin and turned to leave. Her slender figure soon disappeared into the night. Mo Kishin watched her retreating figure, his eyes slightly squinting. It seemed his trip here hadn't been for naught. He removed his gaze from the darkness a while later, turning around to head back slowly. Mo Kishin was in a good mood that day. His lips curved in a smile all the way to the riverside. The moon that night was beautiful, casting a silver sheen over the river and bringing forth rippling reflections. Just as he reached the riverside, his left shoulder was slapped heavily, and a begrudging voice rang out. Where the hell have you been all this time? I've been waiting here for so long because of you. Mo Kishin had a resigned smile on his face. He turned around and patted the old man's shoulder. Sorry, Dad, for making you wait so long. Mo Fuhai feigned a stern expression. Tell me truthfully, where have you been all this while? Did you go messing with some innocent young girl again? Chapter 81 Need to take a strong dose of medicine _3. Dad, you really are my real dad. Mo Kishin said helplessly. In your mind, do you regard my image as being that bad? Mo Fuhai slapped Mo Kishin's head directly. Who lets you, boy, fool around all day with no shape or form? Don't forget, you are an engaged man. A man must be consistent in life. Only a real father could say these words. Mo Kishin touched his forehead helplessly, grateful that Aiyang had not heard these words. Otherwise, even jumping into the Yellow River wouldn't clean his record. Dad, I don't even know what Miss Zhao from Zhao family looks like. How can one marry her? People nowadays emphasize freedom in marriage. Maybe she won't even give me the time of day. After all, in others' eyes, he was a good-for-nothing. At one point, he had even become a joke in his circle. Which rich heiress would look twice at him? As far as he knew, Miss Zhao of the Zhao family had been looking down on him for more than just 1 or 2 days. Mo Fuhai frowned and said, Your Uncle Zhao and his family are people who value promises. They are not the kind of people who would go back on their word. Anyway, you should always pay attention to your actions and speech. You can't do anything to upset Miss Zhao. Dad, it's getting late, we should go back. Mo Qishan started to change the subject. Let's go. Mo Fuhai packed up his fishing gear. Let's go back. Let me carry it. You walk in front, watch your step. Mo Qishan took the fishing gear from Mo Fuhai. Mo Fuhai took the lead, hands clasped behind his back. The car was parked not far away. Seeing them coming, the driver hurried up, took the gear from Mo Qishan and said respectfully, Master, Sixth Master. Dad, take it slow. Mo Qishan helped Mo Fuhai into the car. But Mo Fuhai directly shook off Mo Qishan's hand. Shoo! I'm not that old. Don't need your help. The master was a martial artist in his youth and carried a certain toughness, refusing any help for anything he did. His only regret in life was not having trained Mo Qishan to be an excellent martial general. Forget not being a martial general, he was a downright spoiled brat. Fortunately, the Mo family's estate was strong enough to support this prodigal son without any issue. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to rest in peace even after 100 years. Getting into the car, Mo Fuhai and Mo Qishan sat in the back seats. Mo Qishan asked with a smile, How was your haul today, Dad? Since his retirement, the master had become obsessed with fishing. If he caught too many fish to eat, he would give them away or release them. Not bad. Mo Fuhai was lying contentedly on the leather seat. Then suddenly he sniffed the air and sat up straight. What's that smell? So good. Mo Qishan smiled slightly and took out an oil paper bag from the side. One guess you're referring to this. What is it? Mo Fuhai puzzled. Is it food? Mo Qishan nodded. And as he opened the oil paper, the aroma grew stronger. Mo Fuhai, like a little child, stared wide-eyed and said, Bread! As he spoke, he grabbed a piece of bread and stuffed it in his mouth. After a few bites, Mo Fuhai stopped chewing and just stared at Mo Qishan. Mo Qishan was made a little nervous by his sudden gaze. Thinking there was something wrong with the bread, he quickly took a bite from the other piece of bread. It was soft and sweet, melted in the mouth, and had a subtle milky flavor. It was delicious. Amazement filled Mo Qishan's eyes. He didn't expect such an ordinary piece of bread to be so tasty. What's up, Dad? Mo Qishan looked at Mo Fuhai curiously. The bread is fine. Mo Fuhai kept looking at Mo Qishan, then said, Tell me, where did this bread come from? Mo Qishan nonchalantly asked. Someone gave it to me? What's wrong? Don't you like it? Mo Fuhai squinted slightly. Is this bread from that girl? Young? Mo Qishan surprisedly said, You know her too? He hadn't expected that even his own dad knew her. Fate certainly makes people meet. Blood is thicker than water. Mo Fuhai put on a stern face and said in a severe tone, Mo Qishan, one warn you. I can't control how you mess around outside. But Young is a good girl. You are not allowed to harm her. Otherwise, they'll break your damn legs. Mo Fuhai was truly serious with these words, and there wasn't a hint of joking in his eyes and brows. Chapter 82 Need to take a strong dose of medicine _4. The atmosphere in the car suddenly became heavy. Mo Qishan laughed, saying, Dad, where did you get that idea? Young and I are not like what you're imagining. Besides, I'm not that kind of person. He did want to harm Young, but she never gave him the opportunity. Be serious. What is with that frivolous laugh? Mo Fuhai scowled, continuing, Anyway, I've given you a warning here and now. If you dare harm that girl, I swear I will kill you. Yes, 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 Mo Qishan responded playfully. Rest assured, even if one had the courage of 100 men, I would not dare to provoke her. By the way, how did you get to know her? If Young had been present, she would have realized that Mo Fuhai was actually the old man who had spoken up for her when Yang Guobao was having an epileptic fit. Mo Fuhai often came to fish here, and Young frequently took her eel traps to the river. After many interactions, the old and the young grew familiar with each other and enjoyed each other's company. However, Young didn't know who Mo Fuhai truly was and, having not met any of his family in the past month, she thought that he was an old man living alone. Thus, she often brought bread for him. The two had developed a special friendship despite their age difference. It doesn't matter how we got to know each other. Emo Fuhai slapped Emo Chishin on the head, warning him. The important thing is that you must not harm her. Don't worry. I promise I won't harm her. Emo Chishin raised 3 fingers. One swear. Emo Fuhai gave him a disdainful look, calling him a rascal. Speaking again, Emo Fuhai said, Actually, Yang is a good girl, but you are already engaged to the girl from Zhao family. You cannot be fickle. The Zhao family? Emo Chishin squinted his eyes. It seemed it was time to give the Zhao family a taste of the harsh truth. Otherwise, his father would never see the true colors of those people. At Nis' house, after sending away Emo Chishin, Yang began to prepare dinner in the kitchen. The main dish was rice. As for the stir-fried dishes, she already had a menu planned out for the whole week. Monday's menu, Tuesday's menu, amongst others were already planned. They not only benefited beauty but were also delicious and nourishing, fulfilling dual purposes of beauty treatment and nourishment to the stomach. Yang pulled out the menu. Today's menu included 1. Stir-fried green pepper pork with cowpea. The cowpea has the property of nourishing kidney and spleen. The Compendium of Materia Medica states, cowpea replenishes qi in the middle, promotes kidney health, and restores vitality. Nourishing the kidneys is the key to delaying aging. 2. Polygonatum asparagus eel fillet. Polygonatum can replenish deficiencies and fill the essence and marrow. The eel contains a rich amount of calcium, iron and phosphorus, gelatin and other nutrients. Coupled with polygonatum, it can promote breast development and growth. This dish has a remarkable effect on breast enhancement. 3. Pickled cucumber with ear fungus. Cucumber is a great vegetable for clearing heat and has a whitening effect. Wood ear fungus has a high calcium content and has a decompressing and detoxifying effect. 4. Dendrobium fish head soup. Dendrobium has a large amount of mucus, nourishing and invigorating, and moisturizes the skin without greasiness. Fish head is rich in protein, various amino acids, fats, vitamin B2 and other trace elements. Combined with dendrobium, it gives skin a glossy appearance and maintains elasticity. 3 dishes and 1 soup for 3 people was just enough. And these 3 dishes and 1 soup combine the effects of whitening, breast enhancement, delaying aging, and cooling, which are much more effective than spa treatments in the modern world. After viewing the menu, Yang rolled up her sleeves and started preparing the dishes. Apart from the wood ear fungus and pork that were purchased, the rest of the vegetables were all gifted by the villagers. Some of the vegetables were grown by Ni Tsuehua, the fish was caught by Yang herself, and the dendrobium and polygonatum were dug out from the mountains. Thus, the total cost of a meal was less than 1.5 yuan. The key point was that these combinations could bring out the best in oneself, which can't be bought with any amount of money outside. After more than an hour in the kitchen, the beautifully presented 3 dishes and 1 soup were brought to the table. The moment Ni Chingue entered the house, he was hit with the scent of the delicious dishes. His bad mood brightened instantly. Summer is usually a period with reduced appetite, but Ni Chengue's appetite was improving by the day. Ni Chingue immediately dropped his bag and went to the yard to wash his hands before eating. Yang was pulling something up from the well. As soon as she opened the well cover, a burst of cool air gushed out, instantly reviving her. Chapter 83. Need to take a strong dose of medicine _5. Yang, what's in this basket? Ni Chingue curiously bent over to look. Ni Tsuehua walked over from the side and laughed. This is the sour plum soup that our Yang made this afternoon. Sour plum soup? Ni Chingue's eyes lit up and she exclaimed with surprise. Yang knows how to make sour plum soup? Beverages are quite expensive at this time. A regular soda sells for 1 to 2 yuan a bottle, not to mention the handmade sour plum soup. During a work banquet, Ni Chingue once had sour plum soup. It was sour and sweet, refreshing and grease-cutting. The taste was indescribably delicious. Drinking it in the summer was like a taste of paradise. You just couldn't get enough. Just thinking about it made Anai Chungue uncontrollably swallow her saliva. Anai Yang laughed. This is my first time making it. I don't know if it will taste good. Yang, don't be humble. Does anything you make taste bad? Anai Tsuehua said, Sister Chungue, don't flatter Yang. What if it doesn't taste good this time? Anai Chungue replied, There's nothing that our Yang has made that hasn't tasted good. Anai Yang moved the glass jar into the living room. The glass jar was 5L in size, capable of holding 10 kilograms of water. At this moment, it was filled with purple-red sour plum soup, reflecting inviting circles of light under the warm yellow lamp. It looked just like aged wine. This sour plum soup has such a beautiful color. Anai Tsuehua couldn't help but exclaim. Anai Chungue replied, Yang's mom, this sour plum soup not only looks good, but its taste is also exceptional. Anai Yang brought 3 glass cups and poured a full cup for both Anai Tsuehua and Anai Chungue. Mom, Auntie Anai, you try first. Anai Yang looked at them expectantly. I don't need to try it to know that it tastes good. Anai Chungue said as she picked up the cup and took a sip. The air seemed to quieten. Anai Yang and Anai Tsuehua were both watching Anai Chungue, afraid to miss any change in her facial expression. However, Anai Chungue's face didn't reveal anything special. She looked very calm, as if she was drinking plain water. Chungue, how's the taste? Anai Tsuehua asked nervously. Anai Yang was also a bit apprehensive. Was she feeling uneasy because she hadn't cooked for so many years, and her skills may have deteriorated? Anai Chungue frowned slightly. Actually, the taste is ordinary. Ordinary. Before Anai Yang could feel disappointed, Anai Chungue suddenly changed her expression and exclaimed, The taste is extraordinarily good. It tastes much better than what I've drunk before. Yang's mom, you must try it. Hearing this, Anai Yang looked at Anai Chungue surprisingly. It was obviously unexpected. What a turn of events. Anai Tsuehua immediately picked up her cup and took a sip, and her face was filled with surprise. It's delicious. Yang. It's really too delicious. Even better than sugary water. She had never tasted anything so delicious in her entire life. Anai Chungue laughed. I told you. The things made by our Yang. How could it not taste good? Anai Yang scooped herself a cup and took a small sip. There was a faint taste of osmanthus flower as the soup entered the mouth, followed by a light sour and sweet flavor that spread across the tongue. It made her mouth water. The chilled feeling made every pore in her body open. It felt like turning on air conditioning. It was very refreshing. She couldn't help but want to take a second sip, a third, a fourth. Anai Chungue asked, Yang, how did you make this sour plum soup? The ingredients for sour plum soup should be hard to buy. She wondered how a young girl like Anai Yang knew so much. She was really amazing. Anai Yang explained, I saw it on a cooking recipe, and then went to the traditional Chinese medicine store to buy some dark plum hawthorn and other main ingredients. I didn't expect to succeed by sheer luck. Of course, the premixed sour plum soup ingredients were hard to buy. But Anai Yang, in her previous life, worked in the catering industry. She didn't need to buy those premixed ones from the market. Furthermore, the ones sold in the market all taste the same. Nobody could imitate her self-balanced ingredients. Anai Chungue exclaimed, Yang, you're really smart. Even if one spent 10 days looking at it, I couldn't learn. She is typically someone who can learn by looking at it, but always fails when actually doing it. Also, the dishes you cook are delicious too. They taste 100 times better than those from big restaurants. Yang, whoever marries you in the future would be as lucky as winning the lottery. Chapter 84 Need to take a strong dose of medicine _6. If she had a son, she would surely want to have Anai Yang as her daughter-in-law. Anai Yang said, laughing, I'm not getting married. I want to stay with my mom for the rest of my life. Anai Tsuehua said helplessly, This child, always saying such foolish thing. Looking at the considerate Anai Yang, Anai Chungue was reminded of his own daughter. If his daughter was half as considerate as Anai Yang, he wouldn't be alone today. At that thought, and I Changwei sighed softly. Changwei, what's wrong? And I Tsuehua looked over at Anai Changwei. And I Changwei smiled and said, It's nothing. Let's eat quickly. Yang Yang's cooking is so good. It won't taste as good once it's cold. Seeing this, Anai Tsuehua didn't ask any more questions. It wasn't appropriate for Anai Yang, being the junior, to intervene in the elders' affairs. Without a doubt, the 3 dishes and 1 soup that night were completely devoured, leaving nothing behind. After dinner, Anai Yang washed the dishes while Anai Tsuehua went to give the child a bath. After Anai Yang finished washing the dishes, she went to Anai Kuihua's room. Little Anai Yun, at 40 days old, was very cute. Fat and white, he was splashing water in the basin. Seeing Anai Yang, he gave her a sweet smile that melted her heart. Mom, let me help you. No need, no need. Anai Tsuehua said, I can do it myself. You have also been busy all day, you should rest for a while. Anai Tsuehua was still wearing the same patched clothes from before. She didn't wear the bra that was bought for her. Anai Yang went on, Mom, why didn't you wear the clothes one bought for you? Don't you like them? Anai Tsuehua laughed and said, Your mom never goes out. It doesn't matter what I wear. Good clothes are meant to be worn out. Why bother wearing nice clothes at home? Mom. Anai Yang immediately corrected Anai Kuihua's incorrect idea, then said, We don't have to pinch pennies like we did in the past. You should wear the clothes one bought for you. Otherwise they would become waste when left unused. Just look at how classy Auntie Anai looks every day. And also, you should be wearing bras. If not, sagging breasts can not only affect appearance, but also lead to gynecological diseases. Anai Tsuehua was surprised and asked, Really? It's just a piece of cloth. Wearing it or not should be the same. Could it be so magical? Anai Yang replied, Mom, do you remember how the old lady Wang who lived next door to us died? I remember. Anai Tsuehua pointed to her chest and said, Here it festered, and then she died. Anai Yang said, That disease is called breast cancer, which happens because women don't take good care of their breasts. Really? Anai Tsuehua was somewhat disbelieving. Anai Yang spoke seriously, Mom, when have one ever lied to you? It seems never. Anai Tsuehua hesitated, then said, Yang, but your mother feels uncomfortable wearing these clothes. It tightens around the chest. It's as if one can't breathe properly. Anai Yang continued, Mom, everyone feels the same the first time they wear them. You'll get used to it. And you don't have to wear it all the time, you can take it off when you go to sleep. If you keep neglecting yourself like this, you'll definitely regret it someday. And when that time comes, there will be no medicine for regret. Hearing this, Anai Tsuehua nodded her head. All right, I understand. Anai Yang continued, I'll hold little Anai Yun for you. You go and try on the bra and the new clothes we bought last time. Anai Tsuehua hesitated for a moment, but then took the clothes to change. Because it was her first time wearing a bra, she looked a little awkward and covered her chest with her hands. Anai Yang laughed and pulled Anai Tsuehua to the mirror. Mom, look at yourself in the mirror. Don't you look so much better after wearing a bra than before? Your whole temperament has changed. Chapter 85 Wanting 100 Sons is not a problem. Anai Tsuehua was wearing a beige batwing shirt on the upper body, and a pair of black flared trousers on the lower body. The batwing shirt was fashionable this year. It had a retro pattern embroidered on the collar which echoed the pattern on the cuffs. It looked very nice. Anai Kuihua's skin was originally on the paler side, so wearing beige now made her skin look even more fair and well-balanced. Due to her wearing a bra, her bust was shaped perfectly, presenting a great confidence. Even her posture improved, and she was standing much straighter. The transformation made her look like a different person. Where had that previous, self-conscious and gloomy look gone? For a moment, Anai Tsuehua almost couldn't believe that the person in the mirror was her. But the bra was too tight, uncomfortably so, and she couldn't resist the urge to loosen that bit of strap at the back. After all, a habit of 36 years couldn't be changed overnight. Anai Yang held Anai Kuihua's hand. Mom, look at how beautiful you are now. If you don't wear a bra, there won't be such an effect, and if you don't believe me, go to your room and take off the bra to try it. And Ai Tsuehua didn't really believe it. So she turned around, went into her room and took off her bra. When she looked at herself in the mirror again, she was stunned. Apparently, the difference between wearing a bra and not wearing one is quite significant. The person in the mirror had a hunched back and lost all sense of confidence, appearing despondently and conspicuously older. Ai Yang came over with a smile, put her hand on Ai Kuihua's shoulder and said, "Mom, as I said, there is really a big difference between wearing a bra and not wearing one." Ai Tsuehua straightened her clothes in the mirror. Then Ai Yang continued, "Mom, listen to me. Dress like this tomorrow and don't wear those old clothes in the future. It's not like we can't afford new clothes. All right?" Ai Tsuehua said, looking at Ai Yang and nodding, "I'll listen to you." Ai Yang laughed and said, "Remember to wear your bra, too." I know. Ai Tsuehua nodded somewhat uncomfortably. After leaving Ai Kuihua's bedroom, Ai Yang went into the kitchen. Because she had previously promised Li Gongcheng that she would cook something nutritious and delicious for his elderly grandmother. She intended to brainstorm meal ideas in the kitchen. Li Gongcheng mentioned that the grandmother's appetite was not very good. Generally, there are only two reasons why elderly people have a poor appetite. First, as age increases, the taste buds on the tongue gradually degrade, and consequently, the tongue's reaction to food slowly weakens. Second, the decline in digestive function in the elderly can lead to stomach coldness, causing loss of appetite. Therefore, the remedy should be targeted. After pondering for a while, Ai Yang started to prepare the ingredients. She planned to make sour cabbage and pork-stuffed pan-fried dumplings for the grandmother, and then boil some mint porridge. The pairing of sour cabbage and pork pan-fried dumplings with light mint porridge in the morning is simply delicious. Mint has the effects of dispelling wind heat, clearing the head and eyes, and inducing sweating and easing rash. In summer, elderly people can eat mint porridge to soothe their minds, disperse heat, stimulate appetite, aid digestion, and even break down greasiness. The dumplings can be wrapped now, and they can be pan-fried tomorrow morning. Porridge, however, needs to be cooked fresh tomorrow morning, because leftover porridge is not tasty and less nutritious as well. Although she couldn't cook the porridge in advance, she could soak the rice ahead of time. Ai Yang skillfully washed the rice and left it to soak in a clay pot. After soaking the rice, Ai Yang went to the vegetable garden to pick some mint leaves. She had found this mint by chance by the river and took a few plants back to plant in the vegetable garden, which unexpectedly grew very well. After picking the mint leaves, Ai Yang started to knead the dough and roll out the dumpling skins. After putting child to bed, Ai Tsuehua also came into the kitchen. Yang, what are you busy with? Let me help you." Ai Yang turned around with a smile. "Do you still remember how to make liaoyi dumplings?" "Yes." Ai Tsuehua nodded. Ai Yang then told Ai Tsuehua about what she had planned for Mrs. Mo. Hearing this, Ai Tsuehua laughed. "What's so difficult about that? Leave the job of dumpling and dumpling skin making to me, and you go and prepare the dumpling stuffing." Apart from not cooking as deliciously as Ai Yang, Ai Tsuehua was a very competent mother. She had many skills such as embroidery, shoe mending, knitting. Moreover, Ai Tsuehua was extremely intelligent. She picked up many things quickly after being taught once. "All right." Ai Yang nodded. "Then I'll leave it to you. You're tuning in to the Legend of the Vagabond YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.